Okay. Hello and welcome. Welcome to episode 30 of the Camera Life podcast, proudly brought to you by Lucky Camera Straps. We're coming to you live from Victoria, Australia. And it's the 19th of September already. It's like 100 days till Christmas. The Christmas trees are already up in Big W.
It's all cameras are getting released. GoPros are coming out. You know, it's that time of the year.
It is that time of the year, isn't it? There's a lot of buzz. And we'll get to that soon. If you're joining us live, thank you for coming along on this journey, this photographic journey. Please don't forget to leave let your comments fly, ask questions, make comments. Yeah. We are live at the moment, which is why I'm having so much trouble getting my words together. But don't forget to check out the back catalogue of Camera Life podcast. This is episode 30. We've been maybe doing about 10 episodes now since we've relaunched.
Since the relaunch because we did some in 2023 and then stopped for almost a whole year and then back into it. And I think this is about number 10. Yeah,
cool. So yes, and we're also available on, this episode will later be available on audio podcasting platforms. So if you like to go for a jog, I don't know why, or you like to listen to podcasts while you work, then you can listen along to the Camera Life podcast.
Yep, Spotify, Apple, all those things.
Yeah. Now I'd like to obviously welcome Justin, and I do have a question for Justin off the bat. You know, what were you like as a dancer back in high school and college? Because that was atrocious.
So I can remember distinctly like year 7 and 8 formals and things like that. That was basically a strictly no dancing period of my life. And then as I blossomed and grew and got more self-confident, I sort of moved up to the sort of the shuffle in the corner kind of, and that was about my peak of dancing.
That was your confidence, the shuffle in the corner.
The shuffle in the corner.
It says a lot. I was in 3 debutante balls at my high school. I was the page boy at my sister's debutante ball, and I had a blue tux.
Nice.
Pale blue tux. It was like something out of The Wedding Singer. And then I had my, I think, year 11 formal or deb ball. And then I was asked back by someone else in year 12. When I was in year 12, they were in year 11. So I was very popular. I had the moves. I don't have them anymore.
Yeah.
Speaking of having the moves, that's a terrible segue, but I'd like to introduce our guest, Jason Lau. Jason is a portrait, fashion, commercial photographer and university lecturer in commercial photography. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you so much for having me here. Love being here.
Not a problem. Great to have you on board. Finally, Justin got his wish of not having a Fuji shooter on the show.
Yes. I was
Although
actually,
I will say,
when I went to make a coffee before, because you guys were just chatting before this episode went live, and you said, I remember seeing you at a Fuji event. And I was like, he's done it again. He told me this was a different, Sony photographer, and turns out, no, he's got another bloody Fuji photographer on. But no.
We did meet at a Fuji event many years ago. Gosh, it must be like 8 or 9.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, probably 8 years.
Were Fuji even making digital cameras back then?
Stop it. Fujifilm made the first publicly available digital camera.
You got me there.
Yeah, you can't.
I was watching another trivia show on YouTube the other day. I got to send one through to you. I think we should do a photography trivia show, like a game show one day on the podcast live. I think that would be fun with stuff like that. Who made the first digital camera, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Anyway, it's a topic for another day.
Maybe. So Jason, welcome to the show. Great to have you on board. And we want to hear all about your photography journey. And I know that Justin in particular is pretty keen to find out more about the work you do in lecturing photography students around how to run a commercial photography business, how you set pricing, invoicing, contracts, all of that stuff. And I think
I'm looking for free advice and mentoring without having to go to uni. So that's what I was thinking.
That's the only reason we've got you here, mate. It's all about what's in it for us.
No worries.
But we'll get into that. Just before we do, I just want to point out that both Justin and I are wearing our new Lucky Straps merch.
Look at this.
Yeah,
Look at that.
We've both got the black and gold going today.
Yeah. Printed in Brunswick, in Victoria.
Yeah, printed in Victoria. Is that stuff becoming available for customers, Justin?
It will be. We've got tons of it ready to go. I've just got and I've taken some photos when I picked it up, some behind the scenes shots, but I've got to do the model photos, and that's a whole thing. So I've got to put them on people and take some white background kind of product shots. So
I'm sure Jason will give you a good price on the photography.
Oh yeah, I'll trade you a hoodie for 2 days of straight
so
work.
cheap.
Sounds like a great deal. Speaking of pricing, so I've just got to get that done, and then they'll be up and ready to go. Yelena's got all the products sorted on the website. They're just not live yet because they're waiting for photos, so it's on me.
And do they ship from the supplier, or is Jim's garage?
No.
While he's away, it's full of
Jim's garage. They'll be just filling up. He's not much he can do at the moment. Hopefully, he's listening. You'd think he would be listening because he's sitting at home on the couch with an operated on leg, but he hasn't jumped in the comments yet. So I'd say, Jim, if you're out there, let us know.
Yeah, how you going, mate? Hope you're recovering well. We look forward to having you back. It's been like a month.
Yeah, probably, because he went away and then he had surgery. So missing our third co-host.
Oh, and speaking of missing out, we took a little break last week. Justin and I both had a lot of commitments, and I ran out of bearded people to run the show. So,
so we took a week off.
We took a week off.
I actually had a photo shoot on the Thursday last week, a commercial photo shoot, which is why I wanted to ask Jason whether I underpriced myself or not later on on the episode. It was for a very iconic Australian brand, Furphy. You heard of Furphy?
Mm-hmm. The beer.
The beer. They're more well known. Most of their revenue comes from galvanizing and steel products, but yes, they do make beer also. Yeah.
Nice.
But, it was super fun.
It's quite
we'll dig into that later.
Yeah, okay. Looking forward to it. Are you able to share some shots?
Share some shots. I might be able to. They're unedited as yet, but I might be able to bring a couple up. They're not. I mean, I really enjoyed it. They were like there's welding, all that sort of stuff. I actually got to photograph the galvanizing process, which is pretty intense. A lot of chemicals and heat and stuff going on, so I couldn't do the whole lot, but I could get in there. It's my favorite kind of work to do. Very
cool.
There's no posing. It's just people doing their
raw
stuff. There's no lighting. It's just like the factory's operating, and they just got to cruise around all day and take photos. So it was
street photography in an industrial facility. Basically.
I think, documentary photography, but it is kind of that street thing. Like I would literally find like a nice composition or whatever, and then just wait for like a forklift to drive through. There was no like, hey, can you guys drive a forklift through here while I take the shot? I would just like prop up and wait,
Yep.
And the workers would be
nice.
Yeah, exactly. They'd be watching me, being like, "What's this guy doing?" I'm like, "Don't worry about me. You go about your business."
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's
very
how I
like
nice.
to do it. It was cool.
Let's dive into our guest. Jason, we want to hear about your story before we get into what you're doing at the moment, and before Justin gets his pro bono work out of you. What was your earliest recollection of being interested in photography, and where did that lead to?
Well, I actually began my creative life as a painter. So when I went to universities to study art, I actually thought I'd be a painter, and I had my first couple of photography classes. Is one of those general art classes in first year. I found that I didn't struggle with the work as much as other people did. I know it sounds really weird comparing myself, but like it felt logical to me, and it felt but when I talk about doing photography, I mean film photography. So when I studied, digital cameras actually were not around, so it was mostly a darkroom subject, and I loved it. I loved the alchemy of it. It was a very physical way of understanding that light got captured onto a medium, and that medium, when projected onto another light-sensitive medium, created a photograph. And that amazing process really helped me understand that I could take moments on the world and put it onto a piece of paper. And that actually blew my mind. And one of the things I enjoyed was, the difference between a photographer and painter for me was that I could get out of my own head, and rather than wake up and going, what am I thinking, feeling today, I could ask my question, what's going on out there? What's happening in the world today that I can interact with? And 20 something years later, it's still that feeling. I wake up and I put a camera in my hand, and what's available to me in the world, expands. It becomes different, and doors are open because I can create a moment from life and have someone else sort of view it, enjoy it later on. So that's my earliest memories. I guess it still stays with me today.
I love that
So
description
cool.
of the alchemy of film photography, because it is pretty bizarre and magical, and
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, you put
that
a
whole
white
chemistry process.
blank piece of paper into chemicals, and you wait for your projected image to appear, and then and you see the grain form, and you kind of go, that's it. That's the moment I shot. Or even just when you process the film, is that sort of nervousness, did my film work? And you pull it out of the chemicals, the roll, you wash it, look at it, and kind of go, I've got a minute, I've got an image. Something happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love
I
it.
recently shared with Justin, although he usually doesn't read my messages, and it was a YouTube video shot entirely on film.
I did watch some of that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was fascinating.
Yeah, I forgot to reply. I'm sorry. I did watch some of it, but I've actually still got the tab open to finish watching the video because I got busy about 5 minutes into it. But it is fascinating when they start talking about the cost of and the like how many frames to shoot video on 35mm film. I was like, whoa.
He's going, now's $100.
Yeah. He just
Now's
paused and
$100.
Yeah, he was like, well, wait. Yeah, another $100.
Yeah.
Just running the film through.
It's really fascinating, and it explains a lot about the alchemy. Not as deep as it could have, but it talks about the different frame sizes for different cameras and how Super 8 looks. And they made sort of actual scale models in orange cardboard of the celluloid, and then in green cardboard they had the cutouts of what the frames would be, and they showed how each of the frames would appear on the celluloid strip. It was really fascinating, really cleverly done. Aside from the fact that the whole thing probably cost a fortune to not only film in, because I think they had 2 or 3 cameras going, not only film in celluloid film, but also to process it and scan it, and like crazy cost. But it was really fascinating. Often we talk to guests on the show about where they started, and it always lights me up a little bit hearing about how other people started in the darkroom. Because I felt the same. It was quite magical. The whole, we've got it, loading a spool or unloading a spool in a bag, and then, going into the darkroom, and that whole process was just phenomenal. It felt like true chemistry, which it was. It is. Let's face it.
And the weirdest thing of doing darkroom was if you started your work sort of later in the day and you've been working there and you step outside, it's nighttime. It's like you've been transported in a time machine. It's like, I don't remember it being late. You walk out and you're all disorientated and you stink of chemicals. They're very visceral, wonderful.
It's like coming out of a nightclub.
That's much the
Smell
same.
like chemicals. You're like, whoa,
dehydrated.
It's daytime? What the hell?
Yep, bottom of your shoes are sticky.
Yeah, I don't know if I told this story before, but when I first started, I had a mate, Luke, who we both shot film. We went to different art schools, and his parents had moved off to their retirement home, so he had this sort of big house near where we grew up, and we converted his parents' ensuite into a dark room.
Nice.
But because there was plumbing, so we had, and we had drainage and plumbing and the essentials, but we also needed drainage and plumbing for our homebrew kit. So we set up benches around the kind of the perimeter of the walls, blacked everything out, and everything below the bench was homebrew, and everything above the bench was photo processing. So it was, you can imagine the sort of work we got done.
That is cool.
Well, just as long as you drink the right thing, that's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you don't want to get anything mixed up there, do you?
This ID11 is delicious.
So, Jason, you were educated in photography. Do you still paint?
No, but I spent quite a bit of time over lockdown drawing pictures of Batman on my iPad. So that was quite fun.
Nice.
I think I remember that actually. I remember that. You were sharing them, weren't you?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, you were. I
That's
do remember
awesome.
that now.
I just thought, what was the most frivolous but focused thing I could do during that time? Because obviously work got very quiet over lockdown because
Yeah.
if no one's allowed to work, you've got nothing to shoot. Apart from a few afternoon photo walks. But yeah, so I spent my time drawing Batman on my iPad and it was quite fun.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
Very nice. I similar to you, I went to art school because I wanted to be an illustrator. And that didn't work out. But every now and then I pull out a sketchbook and doodle and go, oh, it's too frustrating. I'll just go take a photo. It's quicker.
I could draw this in a
corners.
second. Click.
Yeah. Multiple.
With more detail.
So what was the first camera that you remember, the first film camera that you remember shooting with?
That would be the Minolta XG2 film camera, and it had a fixed 50mm. It's funny, thinking about my students today, they have amazing cameras, stuff that I couldn't even imagine shooting back in my day. And I shot most of my course on my 50mm 1.7 RAW lens, and later on in third year, I think I bought a zoom, but it was a terrible, cheap third-party zoom, and the colors were all weird. So I think I went back to my 50mm, and
Yep.
it had a really annoying feature. It had to use the light meter. You had to turn the dial to automatic, get your light reading, and then turn it back onto manual. Because once you're in changing your shutter speed, it actually didn't give you a light reading. But when you're starting, you don't realize any difference. You just go, "Oh, this is just how I."
That's the
do things."
process.
So
Yeah.
that's the process.
Oh, interesting. And then you finished up your course. I assume you got a certificate out of it. And what was the next step for you? Fresh out of uni?
Fresh out of uni, I briefly I went and worked in a petrol station because I just needed a job. But that made enough money so that I could go to Europe for 3 months. But once I came
Nice.
back from that, I actually got a job at Ted's Camera Stores.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I worked there for about 5-6 years.
Yep.
And it was actually a really exciting time to work because it was in the early 2000s, and people can start to work out my age from this information. But it was really exciting because it was actually, I came in around the time where the first digital cameras started getting sold, to the consumer.
more
1.3
affordable.
megapixel Canon cameras. I sold a 1 gigabyte micro drive card, 1 gigabyte for $1,000.
1 gigabyte.
Are we going to be
1
saying the same
gigabyte.
thing? Because a 1
Yep.
terabyte CF Express at the moment is about $1,000.
Yeah.
What are we going to be saying in 20 years? We're like, oh, remember when 1 terabyte was $1,000?
That's
Yeah.
right.
It's like those
that's
memes
right.
you
Doesn't
see
even
where
hold
they
one
say that-
photo.
Yeah. It's like those memes you see where they say, your smartwatch has 10 times the amount of computing power as the moon lander, and
And and then they follow up with, so how did we go to the moon?
yeah, so how is that possible?
They didn't do it.
But it was really
what
exciting because there was a real struggle at that point because film was still a little bit better than digital cameras. So there was a genuine decision for the customer when they came in: should I buy a film camera or should I buy a digital?
Convenience versus quality, was it that
That's
kind of
right.
thing? And it was sort of like
Absolutely.
you're taking the easy way out, getting the digital but crappier camera. A professional would still shoot film, kind of thing.
That's right, because
Wow.
the digital cameras were still compact cameras. There were small sensor cameras, low resolution. The batteries lasted for about 20 minutes until until lithium batteries later on came in. They were good, but they were also a real pain to use. And if you had an SLR, that you don't have to think about batteries on your holiday. Let's say you go, the lenses were superior, things like that. And but yeah, it was a real interest. But what was also really fun was every digital camera that came out, every tiny little generational increase was very exciting. It'd be like, oh wow,
Yeah.
this one megapixel became a 2 megapixel, became a 3 megapixel, and then
Yeah.
like some of them would have little twisty screens. Some will be like almost like a pistol style, design,
The
and it
form
was
hadn't
truly innovative.
evolved. Yeah. Everything was like, what angle are they going to take on this, and really
That's
try
right.
something different? Because I guess there was probably those early days where manufacturers were like, well, now that it doesn't need to have a standard film style back design, we can make it any shape. And turns out
That's
photographers want it to leave it the same. Don't touch it. Just
People
we don't
still
care.
needed a hand grip,
Just make it the same. But yeah, I can imagine the designers in those companies would have been just going, oh, we can do anything now. This is, we've just got to deal with a sensor and then all the different components. We can shape it, like a hand grip or with a flip out or any of those kind of things.
Yeah.
That's so
I remember
cool.
my first Sony digital camera, and it was, I can't remember the name of the range. Was it Cybershots?
Yeah, they're all cyber shots.
And they were like a brick, but they had one end was rounded where the lens was.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
I
And they took
remember
those weird long Sony memory cards. There was no third
memory
party
sticks.
option. Yeah, the memory stick, and they cost a fortune for like 4 megabytes.
Good job, Sony.
Yeah, good job.
Well,
Sony.
when I first started, they were shooting that we were selling the Sony Mavica FD73, which took a 3.5-inch floppy disk.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah,
That is cool.
and it was like a brick with actually a 10 times zoom lens, which was quite impressive back then. And but yeah, it shot a 0.5 megapixel photo, and I think people paid it nearly $1,000 for it.
Yeah.
Man.
And it's
was
such a big
wild
leap to go
times.
from, what did we have? Like 100 and something years of film photography. To go from that to trust in digital, that's a huge leap for people to make. I mean, people new to photography, well, you can either spend all this money on film and processing and cameras and lenses, or you can just get this one and done. Here's a little thing, you plug it into your home computer when you're done with it.
Well, here's the journey. When I first started, we were selling 1.3 megapixel Kodaks and Canons, and in about a space of 6 years, when I left the job, we were selling I think there was the EOS 10D digital SLR.
Wow.
For about $1,500 something like that, and
Yeah.
just in that small half decade, the world absolutely changed in photography, and then it was.
Yeah.
It was absolutely phenomenal to think the first camera I held and the last camera I held when I worked there was just
such worlds apart.
unrecognizable.
And then the next, we'll probably talk about this at some stage probably, but the years following that is when the profession of photography changed, pricing
That's
and everything
right.
changed because the barriers were lowered and more people were sort of flooding into the industry.
Absolutely.
And it
Absolutely.
wasn't as stressful to, you could double check if your images were actually working while you were shooting a wedding or something, as opposed to, the fear. Nev's actually asked, hello, Nev. Good to see you.
Hey, Nev.
Always reliable, Nev, in the comments. Asked a question is saying the GFX 500 megapixel sensor will be a thing. It probably will be in 2 years or something. I found it a struggle to swap over to digital. Just everything was different. Did you find it difficult, Jason?
Well, I actually,
Good question,
in
Nev.
my early photography life, I did shoot a lot of weddings as well, and probably the most difficult thing was the post processing, because you got to remember when I shot a wedding on film, I would have an 6 or an 8 pack of film of various ISOs, but at the end of the day, I would just grab my film, take it to a lab, and just go, I'll pick this up tomorrow. That was post processing. Was literally taking the duds and just chucking them in the bin, taking the prints and chucking the duds in the bin.
Yeah.
And the biggest shit was knowing the look that you like, and then all of a sudden it was your responsibility to get that look on computer. And being sort of the first generation kind of shooting into digital, it was like, I don't know how to get that look. How do I, RGB channels and things like that, or whatever, color curve. I mean, I was familiar with Photoshop and things like that, but it was a pain. It was, to have to open a photo, edit the photo, close the photo, and then when Lightroom came in, that made life a lot easier. And that was actually after Lightroom came out that I decided to make the switch fully to digital, because then I could actually fathom processing all that work, rather than opening, editing, and closing. And also, obviously, Lightroom offered non-destructive editing, which meant every time I didn't have to keep resaving images, which meant often you're either saving huge TIFF files or you're losing quality resaving JPEG files. So that was a big thing, and it still took a few years to kind of get the look that felt like what I wanted.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And where do you think that's gone now? Do you think that people are still striving for filmic looks, or do you think people are going for realism is perfectionism?
I think we're in that era of, I think it all exists at the moment. So there are people who really love the retro, look of it. And, I see people often post Fuji shooters. And I actually wrote an article for F-Stoppers many years ago on why can't the JPEG just look better? Because so you go back 5-6 years ago, JPEGs were just really flat, uninteresting colors. They were very neutral, but they didn't have the character of, let's say, a Provia or a Velvia setting or something like that. And
both available on Fujifilm.
On Fujifilm, that's right. And since then, like I said, I feel like so there's for depending on the generation, I think if you're a Gen Z, the aim is actually that nostalgia to them is photos from a 2 megapixel point and shoot.
Yeah,
and
it's
some of them
becoming
are
a thing.
trying to edit. Yeah, it's becoming a thing. They
becoming a
like
thing.
that flatter look, and there's in a weird way more trust in a photo that is less edited for that particular generation. It's
I think that's going to become I think that's a really good point, Jay. I think that's going to become a much bigger topic too, because you look at AI generated photos and they're just too good.
Hyper real. Yeah.
Hyper real. Yeah.
That's right.
Ones that are done properly. She's just on that and talk about writing articles. I was asked to write an article recently for new software that's just come out, and it's AI photo manipulation. So basically you take a photo with yourself, a selfie with your phone, and then you can basically make yourself look like a supermodel and put yourself in a whole range of different situations. You can create fake girlfriends. And I said no, because morally it didn't feel good to me to support that, because the tagline on the product was "Fire your photographer." And obviously that hurts all of us. But aside from that ridiculous kind of subheading, we're seeing it used in really terrible ways. And, recently in Victoria, in Melbourne, I think there was a couple of schools where students were using AI to create deep fakes of female students in compromising situations. And, there's a whole lot of stuff that needs to be done around it. But yeah, I think there is that trust element of, and now we're seeing it like with the presidential election in America. These fakes are being made of people supporting different people, and and I think there is that need for kind of trust to be rebuilt in imaging.
Yeah, and I think it's going to find a way. I've been thinking about that a lot lately as well. I think it's going to find a way. It's going to obviously take some time, but people are going to want to know something was a real moment as opposed to AI generated. And we're going to figure a way out to do that. I don't know what it's going to be, but because there'll be no way to not censor it. What do you call it? Like regulate it, because the nefarious people can always get it. Like they don't care about regulations. Like regulations aren't going to stop the equivalent to hackers creating AI stuff. So it's not that will solve it. It's like somehow we will figure out a way that you can, I don't know, using hopefully let's get the blockchain going. Let's somehow
stop it.
NFT every photo we take or something. I'm not sure.
We talked about that a couple of episodes ago. There's that certification thing that they're
exactly. Yeah.
Fujifilm signed up, and I think Leica as well.
And that's why I love doing the POV videos as well, because it's like, and I know, who knows, in the future you might be able to deep fake a video of you taking a photo or something like that. But it's like, if I've got a camera pointed at my camera while I take the photo, it's like, hey, that's me taking a photo. Like I was there. That's what happened. So it's kind of, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting situation.
Yeah,
we'll figure it out, but it's going to get weirder before it gets better, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you eventually made the shift to digital. Do you remember what your first digital camera was? Did we cover that? I don't think we did.
Ooh. Let's see.
Working in a camera store, you would have been like able to pick whatever you want. You're looking around.
We used a lot of them, but I also I loved film photography, and I think that's because of that. It made the transition quite difficult. I had my Canon EOS 50E film camera with the eye control focusing, and I loved shooting film, and it was actually, I felt like I had to surrender part of myself when I switched to digital at first, because it actually felt like a step backwards. I think my first camera was the EOS 10D. I think all of 8 megapixels or something like that. And yeah, I actually sort of skipped the consumer and sort of went to sort of the prosumer camera, just because if I was spending that money, I had to make that money back. And that was sort of my justification to myself. And yeah, I didn't love it at the start. Actually, I had to buy better glass, because digital, you once you shoot, you want to zoom in, you want to check the detail and things like that. It was a bit mushy. It didn't have the bite of grain at the start. The focusing was okay on it, but yeah, that was my first camera. I think from there what did I get? So then moving on to the 5D Mark 3s and things, Mark 2, Mark 3s, things like that.
Yeah.
So I sort of progressed quite quickly. The 5D was probably one of the last cameras I used when I was working at Ted's Cameras, and that was a wonderful camera. It was the first camera that made me believe that it could. That's it. We've done it now. We've beaten film, and the colors on it were fantastic, and it felt true to life, but warm and interesting. So I very, very quickly switched to the 5D system.
Speaking of, let me just jump in there quickly. Nev has said Fuji, it's why I can't leave Fuji now. They are the only ones that you can get that look we were talking about earlier without having to do 200 things to the photo in post. And oddly, I edit Fuji photos way less.
I have a question, Nev. You can throw in the comments. One, what do you start with one of the Fuji profiles but in Lightroom on your RAWs? Is that how you start your edit and then just tweak it from there? Because I have no problem editing my Canon files. I've got a style that I work, and they're all pretty much the same. I got maybe a couple of slightly different styles depending on if it's if I want more of a film look or more of a true to color look for my commercial stuff. And that's basically it. That I don't muck around with looks. I know what I like. With the Leica Q3, I love their profiles in the camera. I shoot JPEG with it a lot, RAW and JPEG. And I cannot replicate the JPEG in Lightroom on one of their DNGs. I just cannot get it to look. They've got a Turner profile built into the camera, and I love the way it looks, and I don't know what it's doing to the colors. I need to find like a wizard on like color science and stuff like that to build me a profile. But what I don't understand is why Leica. It seems like Fuji have done it. If you have a Fuji JPEG and then you put a Fuji RAW into Lightroom and select that profile, does it look almost the same?
Yeah, it does. It depends on the color balance, but for the most part, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas I start with if I'm like, that JPEG looks awesome. I just want to recover the highlights a little bit more because and the latitude is in there in the DNG because I put the DNG out. Yep, highlights are all there. It's all good. I've exposed it correctly for like being able to work with the latitude of the DNG, the RAW file, but then I cannot get it to like look the same as the JPEG, and it bugs me.
So you can't access Leica profiles in
They've
Lightroom
got-
like you can with Fuji files?
You can do one that's called embedded. I've gone on a rabbit hole on the internet on this. So you can get into the profiles in Lightroom, go to like show all profiles. There's a little hidden button. You can see all of the possible profiles you could put on that thing. And there's one called Leica Embedded, which is supposed to then use the embedded profile from the camera, but it's not. It's not the same. It's definitely not the same. So I don't know if there's
But
any.
you're glad you spent over $10,000 on that.
Yeah, not so much. It is still a far superior image quality to any Fujifilm camera, but
Whatever.
it bugs me. It bugs me that I can't just like start with that look that I already love out of the camera. They've nailed it. The colors are perfect. It's exactly what I want, and I just want to be able to just slightly tweak it. And you can't do that. So I hope they fix that or something. But yeah. So what's Nev said? He said raw and edit from scratch mostly, but the pic still has a different look. Fuji raws are just different. That sounds like a Leica user. You could replace Fuji with Leica in there.
Whatever.
The 3D pop something. His lenses, they got magic in them.
They do.
Anyway, what were we talking about before we got sidetracked?
Jason, we're talking about Jason before you
Jason.
made it all
That's
about
right.
you and your
Hello.
Yeah, I'm just
hi Jason, welcome to the show. So you left Ted's and you decided to become your own boss. Is that when that kind of took place? And you
Actually,
decided to
no.
start?
I actually spent 7 years working as a high school teacher after that. So I taught art and photography. So I was the main photography teacher, but I also got to teach painting and drawing, which was wonderful.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Wow.
All
What a
of the
dream.
skills together.
I loved it. Yeah.
I just want to interject there. For those of you that are watching along, yes, Jason does look infinitely youthful, but his handsome young man looks actually hide the fact that he's 73. If you add up all the years that he's been doing things.
I was going to guess 26, and I was trying to add up. I was like, right, so he started off shooting film. That doesn't add up quite right. But anyway, we'll see.
I often tell people, most people mistake me for an impressive young person rather than a very average middle-aged man.
Nice. I think we can all agree with that. I mean about ourselves, not about you, sorry.
Yeah.
So, high school teaching. Oh, you're a
Yep.
brave man.
No, I loved it.
So,
Absolutely
So
loved
hang
it.
on. So you had to monitor kids in a dark room. Was that part of?
Yep.
Did you guys have a dark
Yep.
room? Wow.
Yep,
Did,
it was-
people
it
just do
was
dumb
an
shit in there?
experience.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, especially when we were loading the films into the canisters, that means you have 15 students in a class because it's an elective, and all the lights were off.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think one class, there was a stacks on, so
In the dark
room.
room.
Stacks on. I haven't heard that for years.
I had to use my grown up voice to break that one up.
Yeah. Because they were all on top of you.
But in general,
Hey,
they
get off me.
loved it. But in general, they loved it because in a sense, we didn't have time to muck around because developing a film was so time sensitive. I was like, we have 20 minutes to get this right, or you'll have nothing. And to be honest, my students learned photography really, really well. I would actually say to them, if this doesn't work, you're only going to find this out next week. So when you're taking your exposure, make sure you get your exposure right. Make sure you get your focus right.
Yeah.
And otherwise, to do it again, it's another week and a half. So and by the time they finished my subject in year 10, they could operate a fully manual film SLR and develop the film by themselves. Because I used to say to them, by the time you get the VCE, I don't want to teach you photography anymore. I want to teach you how to think about making interesting work. And so learn this. And they did. And I even warned them, once we switched to digital, your work will get worse. And some of them will come back all sheepishly like, yeah, it got worse. I stopped thinking about how to frame and take my exposures, and I just left it on auto, and it's not as good. And then they mature through that again, and they get better again.
Wow.
That was 7 years of doing that, and then I think obviously towards the end of 7 years, I realized that I'm teaching other people to be great photographers. I want to go be a photographer myself. So, and that's when I made that switch. I was actually, for anyone there who's out there thinking, is it too late to start or change something? I was in my mid-30s when I had that thought. And when I transitioned to full-time photography, I was 36, 37,
Yeah.
around then. I quit was arguably one of the most secure jobs in the world to do one of the least secure jobs in the world. And I remember waking up the day after I quit. I was like, I'm out. Everything now that happens is on me.
Unplugged from the
if
matrix.
if I sleep in tomorrow, that I sleep in. If I don't make money tomorrow, that's on me. And
Yep.
every decision was then, no one was going to give me work. I had to go and get the work.
It's liberating and scary.
Yeah.
It's liberating and
Isn't
scary. It's a perfect way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I like what you said about how, when you need to mature again, when you kind of get used to becoming lazy with a digital camera. You're talking about one of your students. Or it just reminded me of Justin's recent efforts on his 30-day challenge of getting out and shooting JPEGs for 30 days and looking for, and having to be mindful of the composition and the lighting and, everything, because he wasn't going to edit these. He was going to dump them out, and and as you said, Justin, you had the POV camera on your chest. We all could hear you breathing heavily and watch you drink your coffee. But it was also interesting to see that what you were shooting is what you were posting, not only on YouTube but on all the socials. And I think it's a really important lesson about not just trusting on a PASM dial to take the photo for you. PASM, PSAM, PASM. Try this ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, PASM.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a very good point, Greg, because I think it's the fact that I was filming it and also posting them, and there was that in the back of my head that even though I was just doing it for myself, other people were going to see this, and I was completely cool with that because I've kind of it's very freeing actually, because I've been a professional photographer for 10 years, and like full time for most of those, paying work from clients. So there's this thing that builds up in your head about like the quality of work you should be producing. And it's very freeing to stop worrying about that and just post whatever it is that you get. But then it also it made me care a lot more about every single shot as in a sort of a shooting film kind of way. But instead of me worrying about like wasting film, I was worried about, well, people are going to see this, so do a good job. Try and find the best composition I can, rather than just like take a shot over there, I'll see what works. It was like, really, it definitely did slow me down a similar way to when I've shot film in the past as well. Yeah,
I think it was obvious that you were being mindful because you were thinking out loud about your process, and it wasn't like you were just spraying shots. You would
not
set
that
up
there's
a shot.
anything wrong with that.
No, there's not. But you would set up a shot, and
style.
but I mean, with this challenge you were doing, it really slowed you down. You could tell that you were being mindful because you would frame a shot, and we could see it obviously because of the chest camera, and then you'd go, "Nah, that's not working," and you'd walk off.
Yeah,
and I think that's the sort of thing that we used to do in film photography because, like with that film video I talked about earlier, every shot is an investment. Not just financially, but in time and energy and care to get that image appear on the paper.
For sure. Yeah, I definitely had. It had sort of started to occur to me that's what was happening, and I knew I was slowing down for sure. But now that you mention, I didn't realize maybe that it was the accountability that people will see these that made it. Slow it right down to probably the speed of shooting film, really. Yeah. To be like, all right, I really got to try and, I don't know, not look like a terrible photographer if possible.
I screamed I was screaming at YouTube a couple of times watching the videos. But
turn around!
Yeah, it's right there. Look at the line.
There.
No.
I wondered whether, because I mentioned that a few times too. I was like, I bet you guys can see something that I can't see. And a few people did comment. Yeah. One guy commented when I had a really bad day in Bright walking around and nothing seemed to be working. And some guy was like, you are nothing more than a beginner photographer. You walk past so many great shots. And I was like, ouch.
Wow.
Thanks.
Yep. Thanks. That's kind of helpful.
Yeah, you really helped pep me up after a tough day.
Speaking of comments and sloppy segues, let's jump to a couple of comments from our live viewers. So JS Harney, which is Jason. Morning, Jason. Great to have you back. You could also replace Fuji or Leica in that conversation with Sigma Foveon. For better or worse, those sensors are truly unique in output.
Do they still make them? Are they still a thing?
I have no idea.
There was a whole lot of talk about how they were the highest quality camera there is, and they and everyone was sort of waiting for them to become once Sigma released their camera line with their lens technology and the Foveon sensors, they'll be I don't know what happened. I'm gonna Google
COVID ruined everything.
Crushed everything.
And Nev again, it's so different, isn't it, doing film? It teaches you patience, and today's youth just want to click that button and instantly pop the photo. Our old high school had a darkroom until 3 years ago. Yes, the youths are very impatient.
It's not just the youths. For every generation of teachers coming out, there's less teachers that know how to teach darkroom now too. So when I left, when I was in the subject, I grew the darkroom. When I left, the darkroom shut.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes someone to really love it to keep that program rolling. Plus,
it's also expensive.
That's what I was going to say. The consumable cost for a school, if they looked at it and they said, "Wow, we can buy, this fleet of digital cameras and then not have to spend this much on film and chemicals, and we can turn that dark room into something else."
Yeah, and there's also the H&S side of it, and
that's true. Chemicals.
World's gone mad.
Kids in the dark doing stacks on. There's lots of problems.
Nangs. We're doing nangs. So now you're a professional commercial photographer. So proud of you.
Thanks, man.
At the ripe old age of 22. And tell us about your work now. Where are you based? What do you shoot? And what do you shoot with?
I'll start with the last question. I'll shoot with a Sony A7R5 and as a backup an A7 III. It's just standard lenses. What do I shoot now? It's funny when you sort of look at business entrepreneurship content. People talking about you got to niche down and find your niche and this that. And I don't know if that's necessarily possible in a city like Melbourne where you don't have the population to support certain niches. So I was thinking about this when I was trying to redo my photography website, and I'll try and think of one tagline and how do I summarize the work that I do, and I came up with photography to keep you relevant. And it's really about creating imagery that helps people communicate what they want to communicate about what they're doing now and what their goals and values are and things like that. So, and that's where, when I turn to commercial photography, I do branding photography, I do fashion, I do corporate stuff, and on the side some event photography as well. So it's really a mix. Probably where I bring most value is probably my lifestyle, commercial style work.
I'm just going to bring up your website while you're talking, mate.
No worries. And then just making it look like, helping people stand on world stages, world platforms, and helping people make an impact with the work that they do. People who create businesses are taking massive risks. They put so much money and thought and energy into what they do. And, I get the privilege of showing that off right at the end. So this is some of my lifestyle work made in the last few years. I love lighting. I love creating sort of mood through that, and really think about what I want to communicate. Very
cool.
I love it. I love what I do.
And so you're based in Melbourne. Do you work out of a studio? What's your day-to-day like?
The thing I love is my day-to-day is different. Every day I had to put a slightly different hat on. Some days I am a fashion photographer. I have to think about hair, makeup, styling, things like that, all the logistics. And there are other days where I'm somewhere weird and remote and capturing some motorcycle adventure somewhere. So it's quite different. Yeah, and there are days where I spend just editing. So I actually really like the variety in my week. So I have two photography studios that I co-own with my business partner. That's Looming Studio and Fabric, and they're right next door to each other. Both are 240 square meter spaces. One is primarily a photography studio with a cyclorama, and we call it the sterile space. It's got lots of white walls, real clean space.
Yeah.
And next door, we actually created what I like to call a production space. So we made it a very rustic space, almost like a giant New York loft with rendered concrete wall, sanded brick wall, and both attract very different type of clientele. So I don't work out of there that much these days, but that place very much supports itself and helps us fund
I
other
was
things.
gonna say, so are those places available for rent as well?
Absolutely.
For
No, it's
other
primarily for
photographers?
rent.
Primarily
Yes.
for rent. I was going to say, holy moly, two studios, like two
Yeah.
spaces. That's a big investment in terms of
And that was what it was
cost.
when we first started. We actually shot in there ourselves a lot,
Yeah.
but and it grew over time. And the funny thing is now, if I shoot in my own space, and if I'm not charging for the space, I'm the liability, because like
Yeah.
if I'm shooting there, we're not making
Yeah.
money for the studio.
Well, the cool thing is in terms of business structure, and this is something that often takes newer business owners a long time to appreciate, is the correct thing. The correct way to go with that was you would have to charge yourself the studio
Yes.
higher rate. Whether
Yeah.
whether the money changes hands or not, you would have to price it into your pricing, because, like you say, you're
Absolutely.
literally stealing from one side of the business to support another side, and
Even just the time to look after the studio is
Exactly.
is a cost for yourself.
yeah, and you've got to the reason you have to factor that in is because you could say, oh, it's only a couple of hours a week or something like that. It doesn't really matter, but you always need to look at it and go, well, what if it was 40 hours a week? How would our finances
builds
work?
up.
If
Yep.
Jason had to shoot 40 hours a week in the studio for 6 months straight, like, would everything still work, or would we run out of money on that side? And it's like, yeah, that's so interesting that you've been able to make that a reality. Wow, two studios. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Well, the biggest thanks goes to my business partner. His name's Nick Walters, and he's just he's very passionate about running the space, and he takes care of a lot of the bookings and stuff like that, and,
Wow.
and the maintenance of it. So I definitely couldn't do it without him. Actually, the reason I have this space was because I joined a small little space in Malvern when I first started shooting. So I'll give you a little picture of my first year one of Jason being a,
Cool.
So
a
this is like
professional photographer.
starting from the day after you quit your job.
That's correct.
Awesome. I love it.
All right, this is for anyone who wants to know how to become a full-time professional photographer. So I only had the confidence to do it because I saved enough money to live for 1 year without having to make a cent. So
Nice.
I had enough money to cover my rent, my food, and just living expenses and things like that. And that year I decided to put down on paper what were the things that made me scared and not want to do this, and then I had to go and solve that.
Nice.
So one of the things was I didn't feel confident in studio photography. I thought, well, let's solve that. So I joined a small studio. It was essentially a glorified garage with some paper backdrops and things like that. And that's where I met my business partner, Nick Walters. And he actually, he seemed so professional. Like, he seemed so in control of this space and things like that. And I was like, I think I can do something here, but I used that time to grow my experience and reach out to people to shoot, things like that. I started with reaching out to modeling agencies because I knew I wanted to grow a fashion portfolio at that time, and and basically I wanted to reach out to to modeling agencies, because I wanted my portfolio to really have a look of authenticity of an industry standard, because I didn't sort of want just like I was trying to do one. I wanted to look like someone who was shooting work that other people were paying for. So that was a great experience, sort of learning that, and I developed my own style with my own lighting, and it started becoming not a problem anymore. So I just lost the fear of lighting,
Yep.
and to today I don't even think about it. A light is a light for me, whether it comes from a flash, a window, or a torch. It's all the same to me.
Yep.
And yeah, so from there what did I do? I found out that both Nick and I lived in the same suburb, nowhere near our studio. So we actually decided to go look for a big warehouse ourselves, and then we stumbled on this one in Box Hill North, and it was a crazy adventure. Like, we went from essentially a double garage to, well, it's actually just a deep single garage, to a 240 square meter warehouse, and it was dirty, and it didn't look anything like a studio. It was wild. It was just this big
Was
empty
this
space.
which space was the first one that you got? Which one is it? The
Lumi.
clean, which is the
The
clean
clean,
one,
the clean white with the cyclone armor
plain.
and things like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, so it didn't feel like a space until we hosed it down. We just used a big power, gurney, and hosed everything down, pushed the sludge out, and then we got a forklift and a spray, and we sprayed all the walls white. And then once the walls are white, after the fourth coat, it was like, I think we had,
over the mud and
yeah, that's right.
Like a landlord paint job.
I think we have a studio. I think we have a studio, and we built a site, and that was it. And we actually we got members. That's how we started. We didn't actually sort of open up to the public. We had members sort of
I love that idea.
rent out our space,
Yeah,
and that covered rent. That's it.
Build a relationship and an ongoing, like a recurring fee, and they could then
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great
Yeah,
one.
and we have people who started with us who are still with us. Like, that studio's been around sort of nearly 12 years now, and that some of the members who started there are still with us today. Yeah,
So that was before COVID.
Well before COVID.
I know I
COVID
keep
was
bringing up
actually the
COVID. I'm
launch.
just fascinated by how COVID changed things for everyone. But
Well, COVID
And
was
that
the
you
launch of
made it.
Fabric, which is our second space. So the business next door to us actually went out of business, and so they left. And so before it was put on the market, we made a pitch to the agents, and so said, can we rent this space? And they really like us because we really look after our space, and we essentially increase the value of it. And yeah, so they let us have that space, and that was how we spent the second half of COVID, was building that space.
Nice.
wow,
That's so
in between
cool.
Batman drawings.
Yeah.
And just a bit of industry insight, that space probably is more successful now than our photography space, which is a fully kitted out space, because people just need a big empty space.
Yeah. So is it cheaper? Like, if I was coming down, I was like, hey, I just need a spot to do some shoot. I don't care what it looks like. Is it cheaper for me to rent that space than it is for the Lumi space, or are they the same
it's
price?
more.
Or it's more.
It's more.
Oh,
Yep.
you're awesome. I love
No,
that.
it's because we rent out the whole space, whereas the Lumi Studio space,
okay.
we can actually segment it, and
Right.
people can sort of walk in and out and things like that. But if you
Okay.
have the big Fabric space, it's the great thing is it's got a big garage that starts, so you can drive a van straight in,
That's what I was going to
load
ask.
and unload.
And you could do a car shoot in there or something like that.
Oh, we do.
Like big-
Yeah, we've had car shoots.
Yeah,
We've had
love it.
massive commercial clients.
Can I share the website with people?
Oh, yeah, that's
Jason,
a great
Sure,
idea.
of course, absolutely.
Let me just bring it up. Oh, where did it go?
Trying to think of a shoot.
Yeah,
we
so
could do down
one's
there.
called Lumi Studio, the other one's called Fabric Space.
Got it here.
Is that
So
Lumi?
this is the Lumi Studio website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, wow,
It's
that's
huge.
so cool.
There's this hair and makeup section.
Yep, hair and makeup section. And next to that is what we call the attic. So it's actually a little stair that leads up to a little booth next to the window. So we actually have a natural light space as well.
Oh, cool.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah, it's really big, isn't it?
Basically, whatever you can dream of, you can do it in that space.
Yep.
That's phenomenal. And what was the other website?
Man, it would
Fabric
be a lot
Space.
easier for me to come down and
Fabric
shoot this Lucky Apparel down there.
Fabric with a K. Fabrik.
That
we go.
psych wall just looks so. I love it. It just, you see that and you're just like, wow, I wouldn't have to set anything up. I just put my lights
That's
up,
right.
stand
That's
them there,
right.
done.
That's right.
backdrops,
Sometimes people
no
just
nothing.
use our window light and they just shoot in there. And this is Fabric Space. So, like I said, very different vibe, like a real
Yeah.
New York loft, really edgy.
So
So
good.
basically, if you ever see a campaign with a rendered brick wall or a concrete wall, it's probably shot in our space. We have a lot of commercial work go through here.
Yeah,
That's very cool.
But it's like a giant concrete playground.
yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, we've had people shoot documentaries in there, car shoots
yeah.
in there,
It would be perfect.
heavy
for that.
metal videos with flames in there.
Yes. Yeah, it would be perfect for the Netflix style,
Yeah.
interview documentary video thing.
We literally had one
yeah.
of those. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks exactly. Throw a few background lights in there and stuff like that, and done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so
Very
good.
cool.
Well,
Yeah, so
we
that's how I don't. It's just accidental, wonderful kind of serendipitous thing that sort of allowed that to happen. It's meeting another photographer where it wasn't a no, it was like yeah, that's difficult, but how do we make that work? And you start making plans, and yeah, I can't believe I have these two spaces, but you just take one step at a time, and all of a sudden it's there.
I think accidental is not giving yourselves enough credit in the terms. I like to think of it in terms of being open to opportunity.
That's right. That's right.
As you flow through life, like you can be open to things like that, or you can be closed to things like that, and just obviously that opportunity has to present itself. But the fact that you were open to when the neighbors moved out, as opposed to just like in fear mode because COVID and all this sort of stuff, you could have easily been closed off to that opportunity completely. But you were open to it, and then you worked on it.
Yeah.
It was sort of fortunate that it was available, but it wasn't. It wasn't just sort of luck or anything. No. It was you.
But we the second space we were more confident because we knew what we were doing then. We knew how much things cost. We knew how to find a clientele and things like that. And it's often credit. It's actually credit to my business partner because he was the one that wanted to take over that space. And I was actually a no at start. So I don't think I want to take on more risk. And he was like, we could turn into this. And once this is the thing, once he starts generating an idea, I like to feed into ideas. I get excited by improving ideas. And that's kind of where I sort of got the idea. I said, well, I don't want to actually replicate the space. I want a different space because I didn't see the point of having two spaces attracting the same audience. I said, I want this new space to have a completely different type of person that uses it. And that's exactly what we got. So that's how we managed to double the business by not going after the same clientele.
Yeah. It's brilliant.
That's very clever.
Let's
just take a quick pause. Hang on. Sorry, mate.
Let's go for it.
I'll just jump in there. I know you're the boss, but I'm running the show.
I'm down the bottom.
I want to jump to a couple of comments. Speaking of the boss, just a reminder that today's episode is brought to you by the wonderful team at Lucky Straps. How's that for a segue?
Good job.
Just remember the tops, the merch, the straps. I don't have any straps here. Oh yeah, I do. Look, here's one. Here's my camera life strap. It's probably upside down.
Just very quickly, if any of you guys are going to the Bright Festival of Photography, which is now sold out, Greg and I are going to be there, and we've actually already launched the possibility to order yourself a BFOP, Bright Festival Photography custom camera strap. We've already got a heap of orders through, and they'll be running for another couple of weeks. So I know we had a few listeners the week before last that were BFOppers, as I've realised they've come to call themselves BFOppers. Yep. So we'll see you all there. I'm excited.
Sounds like the dance you used to do in the corner at the prom.
Yep, the BFOP.
The BFOP. Yeah, we will be there. We're going to do workshops. We're not just standing around trying to flog product. We're actually going to be involved. We're going to be entrenched.
I was looking at that the other day. Have you ever been up to it, Jason, or heard about it? The Bright Festival of Photography? It's wild.
No, I haven't.
Like 500 photographers attend. I think, what do they have, like 30 workshop what do you call them? People that run
Instructors?
workshops, really smart people, 30 smart people.
Oh no, it's more than that.
Maybe,
It's much
maybe
more. Than
more. Yeah,
That. It's like 70
huge.
or something.
3
70
days.
instructors. Yeah.
So they've created this thing where it's like you pay for your ticket and then you get BFOP dollars in return for your ticket, like fake money. And with this fake money, you can book workshops across the weekend. And they run the workshops all weekend. Some of them run the same workshop like every day, and they're all different times and all this stuff. So there's this massive schedule that you've got to then look through, and you're like, oh yeah, that one's worth $60, that one's worth $120 or whatever, and you start to plan out your weekend. And then on one day they release like the ability to book them, because the really popular workshops book out fast. So there's this like frenzy of people trying to book which one they want to go to and all the different spots, and then
Website crashes.
The website crashes apparently every year. And then once you've spent all your BFOP dollars, you can even spend real dollars on additional workshops if you're super excited about, and there's spots available and stuff. It's a wild. I'm super interested to go there and see how it all unfolds. I was looking at the workshops again the other day, Greg. There's so many different interesting portraits, landscapes.
Yeah, I'm looking at a lot of portrait stuff. I want to build up my portrait skills.
I thought you would be. I think you want to go to that shibari thing. With shibari?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
the Japanese bondage session.
Yeah.
Photography session.
Yeah.
I'm not the model, thank God. Yeah, it looks pretty good. We had Matt Crummins on a couple of weeks ago. He's one of the directors of BFOP.
Also a Sony shooter.
Also, yes. And he's also an educator and a workshopper and all of those sorts of things. And yeah, he's really excited for it. And it's going to be good. It's going to be really good. We're going to head there. We've got our merch to wear. Just once again, the Lucky Straps merch.
We'll do some... do some fun getting around and chatting to people. All the major camera brands go there, and
it's a lot of accessory product brands. And
sorry to hype anyone up that's wanted to go that doesn't have a ticket, because it is already sold out. But next year,
Let's jump to some of the comments, and then we'll get back into Jason's story. And I know that Justin wants to ask Jason a bunch of questions. So Nev said, "I want the Miticon 6514." And darkrooms closed because of chemical safety. Now, Nevis also does some workshops at high schools over in WA. So bit of a theme there. The next one is from Jason. The Foveon cameras themselves are generally terrible in use. Very slow, strange handling, and difficult software to process. They're about as practical as a large frame plate shooting. But the output... were they the ones that were like those weird shapes? They went for really dynamic industrial design.
Yep, and then there was sort of talk of, I think maybe they released an L mount one or whatever. I think there were some fixed lens ones, and then there was FP and FPL. I think they were Foveon sensor cameras. I'm not sure. I was googling it, but then I think earlier this year there was something put out by Sigma that says it's not foreseeable that the full size Foveon sensor will be commercialized. The release date of a camera with it is undecided or something like that. So I think it's been put on ice. Don't know.
And some feedback for Jason. I applaud the bravery for making that leap, but also the articulate problem solving to get to that point. And I think that really resonated with me too. It's something that I like to say, that I don't bank on hope or faith. I bank on action and actually getting it done, even though I'm terribly lazy. And Jason said, agree with Nev, fantastic on every level. There's a couple more here. Nev said, brilliant. He's referring to your studio when we were showing your studio earlier. It's a vibe that's old school. Isn't it interesting what you can create from a space like that? Amazing. I think we all agree with that. And then there's a question from Pum Pum. Hope I'm saying that right. Hi, people. What do you think about Canon T7i? I'm a student.
This has got Jason's name all over it. Teacher, students, used to work at TEDS.
Yeah.
We can go on a coffee break.
I think cameras are all brilliant today. So that's plenty of camera to get started with. And the rest is more showing up, I think. Yeah, it's more important to show up with an average camera than have the best camera and not show up.
I never
And
understood the T7 stuff. You know, like the Rebel, the T7.
yeah,
I'm
that's
a
the
1500
800D.
Right, because that's the problem. Everyone always mentions that on the internet, and I'd always be like, I don't know what camera that is. Like it's a, I
It
shoot
is
with a
weird,
Rebel.
isn't it?
I'm like, what's a Rebel? Is it? And then you'd find out it's like a 550D or something like that. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It was an interesting decision when Canon America went their own way with branding.
Yeah. I would. My advice would be if you're looking at buying that camera new. Because I don't think, I mean, it would be very cheap now. Basically, my advice would be if that camera is extremely cheap, then go for it. It'll be a great camera. But don't spend a lot of money on a what would be an APS-C DSLR in 2024 because you could get an APS-C mirrorless for probably not much more at secondhand entry level. Or even, man, I've seen some secondhand. I sold my Canon... This will make the lenses more expensive, but I sold my Canon EOS RP, which is a full frame mirrorless camera that's going to take Canon's current lens system for a long time. And I'm sure there's Sony's and stuff in similar price points. I sold it for $700 and it was basically brand new.
Yeah.
Like that is a camera you could make professional work with. Full frame, 24 megapixel, mirrorless, $700. It might be a little bit out of the budget, but there will be secondhand offerings. Yeah. So I'd be mindful about how much you invest into a system that APS-C DSLR is probably on the way out. So lenses and everything, while there'll be bargains at the moment, hopefully, I wouldn't invest a ton into that system because you'll probably want to change in a year or 2 or 3.
Good advice.
Jason, you got any other advice for Pum Pum?
Shoot for
In terms of gear, I do agree. I think there's, like I said, it all depends on how much you want to pay for it. I think like a cheap prime is a nice thing to have, like the 50mm 1.8, something like that. That thing that really gets you that will teach you depth of field and separation, things like that. You know, I think that's where it feels fun. It feels fun to use a full frame or a APS-C versus, you know, something like a point and shoot.
It's what got me hooked in photography to start with, because I bought the Canon 60D to start making videos, because that was like, it was like, hey, you can make really cool looking videos with these cameras now. And I was watching a lot of stuff like that. I wanted to make action sports video, and I bought that camera. And I bought a lens or two, but I also got the 50mm 1.8, the Nifty 50. And on that would be like an 80 or something, like a portrait-y kind of on the crop sensor. And I took some photos with it, just wide open. I was like, oh, these look awesome. And then that's when I became a photographer from then. Because I was like, wow, look, you can just like focus on this thing and everything's all blurry in the background. It looks amazing. And it got you that kind of, that look that I certainly didn't get from whatever wide angle lens I got with it, or something like a, you know, like a zoom that's 4.5 to 5.6 or something like that. And it just looked like you took a crappy photo. It just looked like crappy photo. Whereas with the other lens, I could take crappy photo and it looked awesome.
That's right.
At the time.
I think, and I think there's a lot to learn, like Jason said, from starting out with either a 50mm full frame or a 35mm APS-C lens, because if you get that and you shoot everything you can with it at every aperture, and you review your photos and you review how you're taking photos, if you're zooming in a lot, then maybe you need something longer. If you're taking steps back every time you go to compose a shot, well, maybe you need something wider. It's a good kind of Goldilocks lens, if you will, to work out, you know, what your style is, what your range is, what you enjoy shooting. And I think just get out and just use that camera and lens until your fingers hurt, really.
Yep.
And review your photos and look at the ones that you love and look at the settings and commit start committing that stuff to memory. Because the more you do it, like Jason said, just show up. The more you show up, the more you do it, the more that stuff becomes muscle memory.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's
and
a good way to not buy gear that you don't need is to, like you say, Greg, like start with something and it's sort of like be aware, allow yourself to be in moments where you're like, damn, if I had a telephoto lens right now, I would have got that shot. Like, let that happen a few times.
Yeah.
It's okay. There'll be other photos to make. So let that happen a few times before you run out and spend $3,000 on a 70 to 200 or something. Like, you don't have to have everything from day one. And you can allow those moments to come and go where you're like, oh, if I had a wide angle lens, then I would have got the best shot of the day. And then, you know, let that happen a couple of times and then go, okay, I'm going to go and invest in a wide angle lens.
Yeah, most definitely. Nev has commented, you can check in Lightroom. What is your most popular focal length?
Yep, you sure can.
And one other quick comment from Jason. Back on the Sigmas, the Sigma FP and FPL cameras are traditional Bayer sensors, which is what the Fuji started with.
Not the Foveon sensors.
Yeah, the SD interchangeable and DP were the Foveon models.
You, Jason, you are a wizard when it comes to weird camera stuff. I'm going to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, definitely. You're always up at this time, it seems.
Now, other Jason that's our guest.
Yes.
I have a question about your business relationship. Is one of you more risk averse and one of you less, more risk tolerant and one less risk tolerant? Like, is there kind of a push and pull relationship there when it comes to like business decisions and stuff? Someone's like, yeah, let's just buy the thing. And the other person's like, oh, I don't know if now's the best time to buy the thing. Yeah. Is that how it is?
I think at the start, I generally think with my studio business partner, if we end up agreeing on something, they're generally good decisions because both of us will also interject and kind of go, I don't think that's a good idea. So I don't think that we generally play a role. I would, if there had to be one, I would generally be a little bit more skeptical.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean I'm not for investing in things either. So I remember a while back where Nick had bought a video light, and I looked at it and went, what are we doing this for? I saw we could use it, maybe hire it out. And I actually said, I don't think that's enough light for us to invest in. And I'm normally the person that sort of say, oh, why are we spending on this? And I said, if it's not a good enough light, no one will want to hire it. So we actually went and spent like 4 times more and got our first sort of video light kit that actually made its money back because it was a better kit than to have something that no one wanted to get. So that's sort of an example of where I would normally be the person that says, no, I don't think that's a good thing to have. To actually, I think we need to spend more money in order to regain that money.
The reason why Justin's asking this question, Jason, he was actually describing his relationship with Yelena. Because Jason's Justin's I think we should buy this, and Elena's I don't think we should buy this.
No, there's actually two reasons, but no, one reason. I was reading a book yesterday, but before I tell you about that, what you said then about the lights actually reminds me of a quote. I don't know who the original quote is attributed to, but it was someone I used to work for in my early days when I worked for a boat sales business. I used to sell boats.
In Bendigo?
In Bendigo, yep. Fishing boats and stuff like that. And the guy that I worked for, John Nankervis, who was actually the partner of one of the most sort of premier wedding photographers at the time, Lisa Nankervis, who taught me a lot of stuff and is awesome. She doesn't do it anymore. But anyway, that's irrelevant to the story. He used to always say when we were talking about things like that, if you're going to be a bear, you might as well be a grizzly bear. And that was his saying. Like whenever we're talking about, should we get this or whatever, he was basically saying, like, if we're going to do this, we might as well do it properly. If we're going to hire lights out, we might as well get lights that people really want rather than, I love that. You might as well sort of, because then it's a big enough deal that people will take notice of it and be like, oh, they've got that awesome kit. Let's ring them or whatever.
That's right. And I think we're at a point in our relationship, like we're 12 years into this now that I trust his decision. If he gets that, then there's more need for it because my business partner probably spends more time with the hiree, so he has a better idea. And it's really just the big stuff that we sort of do talk about. The day-to-day stuff, if it needs this or that, like I think there's no point going into business with someone you don't trust.
For sure.
I trust him implicitly with his decisions, and he makes lots of great decisions.
Yeah, the dynamic of the business relationship was what made me curious. I'm in the middle of the book about Charlie Munger, Poor Charlie's Almanac or something like that. So Charlie Munger, business partner of Warren Buffett, both super successful investors. And there's all these in the book. It's just a collection of like letters and things that were written back and forth between all these different people and stuff like that. And what was interesting is I think Warren Buffett used to call Charlie Munger, and he called him this in a letter, the abominable no man, because Charlie would always tell Warren no, like when they were talking about business risks and things like that. And they had that dynamic where one was a bit more push and one was more pull, and it helped them, I guess, make wiser decisions about the business rather than if both of them were very risk tolerant, maybe they would have taken too big a risks and things like that. And so it's interesting.
Yeah, I also love appreciate the opportunity to learn from my business partner as well, because it's, when you first go out as a solopreneur, you realize that it is a very lonely journey for a lot of the time, and even just having someone just to bounce ideas off is very valuable, and especially if you can find someone to tell you the truth, that's where the real value is.
I was going to say, the thing is, when you're both in business and you're bouncing things off each other, you both got skin in the game. You're both taking the risk. Whereas, if you just chat about it with a friend, they might be like, "Yeah, just get the big lights or whatever." Like it's not their money,
that's
though.
right.
So it's
well,
different.
in that sense, I think sometimes I warn people about taking advice from just anyone, especially in the world of creativity, because unless you're actually in that world, most people give awful advice to creatives. It's very very cliched, very trite, or sometimes your biggest enemies are your friends who are praising you, and you don't have that one person who's like, actually, you should probably get better at this thing before you go and do that thing. And I think there's a lot of people
have you considered
missing that stuff. Yeah,
and I think that's a big part of what I like doing with the Fuji Group, and obviously with Lucky Straps. One of my commitments to Justin is to build community around the brand, and I think community is really important in creative pursuits, because it gives you a safe space to actually ask those tough questions. Am I getting this composition all wrong? Like, I thought I was doing well with lighting. What do you think? All of those, you're going to get real honest feedback from a good community. And I think for students, like we were talking about earlier, to Pum Pum, another key thing about showing up is build your network, not in a traditional LinkedIn sense. I mean, that is obviously, those sorts of things can be important, but more in, go out on shoots with other photographers, watch what they do. Swap cameras with someone. Like, go out on a shoot with a friend and here's my Fuji, can I use your Sony? And build that community and join a Facebook or an Instagram group that seems reasonable and, comes recommended, and ask tough questions and learn from that part of the process, because it's a really important, because photography can be a very lonely thing. Even if you have a business partner, you're still in your own head the whole time, when you're doing something creative like that. And I think having community is really valuable asset, a part of the toolkit for a creative.
It's very similar with owning your own business too, and that's something I've had to work on a lot and actively try to cultivate, and probably still don't do it enough. Is finding other business owners to talk with, and because, as Jason said, with creatives, be careful who you take your advice from. 100%, or possibly even more so, with business. If you're looking to get into business as a photographer or any business, be careful who you take advice from, because if they don't own a business or they have never owned a business, this is generalizing, but they will probably give you shitty advice because they have no idea what it's about. So find people that have done it, whether it's other photographers or, even better, sometimes other business owners that are in unrelated industries that have experience as well, just in different forms of business. Seek advice from people that qualified to give it. And even then, remember that
Yes,
they're just
right.
that. Even then, it's coming through their own perspectives and their own lens, and they'll tell you something because they've had a bad experience with it. But it could be, you've always got to take that into account. What's their experience and why they're telling you what they're telling you? Usually, they're just telling you stuff that they probably should have told themselves 10 years ago, which is fine because it's probably good advice. But just take everything with a little bit of caution.
That's excellent advice. And I also, to extend on that is, whoever's giving you advice needs to understand what your goals are as well.
Exactly.
Because everyone, the one thing I'm really careful about is what does success mean to you? And everyone has slightly different goals or even just slightly different stages of their career and what they should be focusing on now and later and things like that. It's complex and it's a lot more nuanced than just do these 3 steps and you'll be a success, which, I really reject those sort of really quick answer things.
Yeah, it takes time. Just a very important comment. Greg is right. I like that. Thanks, Nev. It's about connection. Photography is hard because soon as our images go up, other photographers try to get a piece of the pie or they try and copy your work. They steal your clients. Oh, Nev. That sounds like a story for another episode.
Yeah, we'll get you on to talk about that, Nev.
Yeah, we will. We will get you back, Nev. So let's. Here's a lovely segue from Jason.
Yeah.
So to the important things. Jason photographs motorcycles. So do you also ride them? And if so, which brands? Hint, only one acceptable answer. And Jason's, I don't know if you can tell what sort of bike that is, Jason.
That looks like a
Ducati?
Ducati?
No?
Yeah, it looks like a Ducati.
I'm just, that's purely because it's red. I know nothing about motorbikes. I was like, but also I was thinking like, what is the Leica of motorbikes, or, like what's the brand that someone would say there's only one acceptable answer? I was like, Ducati? I don't know.
Ducati.
We can go on
if you're into that.
Oh yeah, there's a whole other podcast on this that I can go on. In answer to this question, I'm actually a real brand agnostic in everything. Like I don't consider one brand in camera better than the other. In terms of motorcycles, honestly, if it's got 2 wheels and an engine, I love it. You can have fun on a little 250. You can have fun on a 1200cc bike, and that.
Yeah, but cut to the chase, mate. What do you ride?
I ride a Harley Davidson at the moment. It's a Harley Sportster. You can see that in the 4th image. There's a little video reel there.
This one here?
That's that one there. Yep. That's my bike.
Oh, looking cool.
Oh, that is cool.
That was just creating some content
vibes.
for Alpaca backpack. And nice break from being behind the camera. I got to be in front of the camera this time. That's my bike, and that kept me quite sane over COVID as well, because I very much customized that over lockdown, and I loved it. But that's partly because my Triumph Bonneville prior to that got stolen.
I remember that. Yes.
Damn.
Yeah, that was annoying. I still
Did that ever show up?
It did show up, very mangled, and they pulled bits off it and spray painted over my custom paintwork, things like that.
Oh.
But yeah, so that's my Harley now. So that's what I ride.
Wow.
Very cool.
And I like it because if I get bored of it, I can change it up and it'll feel like a different bike. And I quite like that customization side of it. Not that please do not think of me as like a engine tinker or anything like that. I'm not great with stuff like that. If I can unscrew it and screw it back on, that's great. If I have to balance something or fix the fuel pump or something, wouldn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
But I love the aesthetics of motorcycles.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, you capture them very well. And I've seen some of the ones where I think they were done like at a sunset. It was quite a while ago now, where the bikes were moving quite fast and there was, dust and dirt flicking up and
yeah, there's a lot of that.
So are you photographing these? Is this purely for you or are these for clients?
It's a mixture. So some of them are definitely for clients. Some of them have been for Harley Davidson themselves, some for adventure companies, some just for myself. And I love being in the community. So sometimes someone will send me gear and I'll shoot that gear for them. And some is just paid work.
So it seems like you've made a conscious choice that your Instagram is a place for motorcycle content, and your website is not so much. I mean, it's on there, but it's like if you.
Oh, I also have Instagram just for my fashion work.
That's what I was going to
okay,
ask, because I was like, if I found both of these things, I would for a second almost be like, hang on, is this the same photographer, or have I found the wrong Instagram page?
And this is actually my answer to niches, because people remember I talked about how it's very difficult to have a niche. So instead of having a niche, I try and communicate whatever it is I want to communicate clearly enough to an audience. So it's not about starting 6 different accounts, but like I have one for my sort of commercial fashion work, and I have one for my motorcycle work, and I don't care if people from one end don't know I do the other, as long as it cuts through to the people who I needed to cut through to.
Yep.
Because clients are, in a sense, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but clients are lazy. They don't want to spend that much time thinking about you. They just go, can you do it? And can I trust you to create this type of imagery? And if you can show consistency, they go, yep, I can trust you to make this type of imagery. So if I mix weddings with fashion, with motorcycles, with lifestyle, with photos of my lunch, what am I saying? I'm not saying anything. But if I have an account for motorcycles, people go, yep, I want you to shoot this. If I have an account for fashion, people, yep, I want you to shoot this.
What's the quote about they need a photographer to take a photo of a banana, and they show them through the portfolio, and there's like, here's a shoot I did with apples, here's a shoot I did with oranges, watermelons, and then they get to the end of it and the client goes, yeah, but have you got any examples where you've shot a banana before? Like they want to literally almost see like exactly what, because you're right. It's funny. I used to always tell Jim that with our wedding photography. Jim was my business partner, or still is. We have Justin and Jim photographers, but he might even rebrand it. He does all the weddings now. I don't really do any of them. But for 5 or 6 years, we both ran full time shooting weddings under the brand name Justin and Jim Photographers. And I always told him, and he obviously agreed, we need to be the safe choice. Like customers, clients need to choose us because they're like, they will show up, they will deliver exactly like the quality that we expect. That always be the safe choice. And any decision that we made around business or anything like that was like, how do we make sure that they can safely be like, those guys are the guys for us. There's no other. There's no risk in us booking them. And I guess that's the same thing as building trust. Yeah.
And, clients, if someone doesn't want to spend money on you, that's normally it's a risk issue. They're like, well, I don't know if you're going to do this, so I'm only willing to give you this much. But, if you're focused on if your site speaks to the client's success, they go, yeah, if I spend this, then I can make that out of this kind of work.
Yeah. Or they'll pay double because someone else is a safer choice,
That's right.
They might pay you double what they'd pay me because they'd be like, show me your fashion work, and I'm like, I don't have much, and then they see yours and they're like, oh wow, we'll pay double to make sure we don't have to do this again.
I can say I can get this, but in half the time. Because
exactly
this is what I focus on. These are the gears I have, and so one of the things I just to move on, Greg, what I did next. So I now also teach commercial photography at College.
Beautiful.
Thank you. And one of the main lessons. So firstly, I love teaching commercial photography because I've obviously spent many years teaching photography 101, how to use a camera and things like that. Commercial photography is essentially how do you live how do you make a living working in photography? And probably the core thing I try and teach my students is seek your client's success and understand what success means for them. Because if you are wanting to quote for a job, you can quote hours. That's in like, this job will take me 2 hours. This is how much I charge. Or you can quote value, which is, from what I give you, what can you do with this? How can I help you succeed? Like, so why does your photographer, why does your client want these photos in the first place? And what does it mean for them to have this or that? And that will even determine what kind of budget they should spend on it, and it's not necessarily to how they use your time, because I might be able to do something faster than another photographer. It doesn't mean I should be paid less for it. I might have more insight into how they can cut through to their target audience, and what's the value of that? What's the value of an idea? What's the value of having fun on the shoot so you don't hate your job as much? Like there's a whole host of factors into this that's so much more than just what's your hourly rate. So I'm always thinking about what are the deliverables, what's the meaning of it. And and the easiest way to do that is essentially to lead with curiosity. You don't have to be an expert in anything, but you just have to kind of go, yeah, tell me about your business. What are you guys doing? What are some of the challenges that you're facing at the moment? And what can I do to be part of helping you succeed? And once you start talking to that, the conversation of hours goes away, because you can be like, oh, let me help you increase your sales by 20%. Let me help you do this, and actually even before that, what you're really doing is you're trying to establish whether they're your client or not. Because if someone comes to you and kind of go, well, I've got $200, but I want to do a $10,000 looking shoot.
Yeah.
They're not your client. They might be, they might not be, I don't know. But you have to decide that for yourself. But once you sort of decide that, I think we can work together. The thought is then just, how do I help you, really make the most of what you're trying to do? And my thought's there. And as long as, I always try to remind photographers, actually I remind my clients, there's no such thing as an idea that's too big. Let's go for it. Let's dream it. If you got the budget, let's do it. I don't mind if the shoot's overseas. I don't mind if it's interstate. I don't mind if we have to hire a lighting crew, whatever it is. As long as you've got the budget, we can do it. But if they don't, then let's be clever about this, and let's see what's the best we can do for your budget. Like if you only have $1,000 to spend, how can I help you make the most of that money? So it's not about greed. It's not about trying to rip people off. It's actually kind of go, well, for your money, what can I give you that will help you multiply your bucks, multiply your investment? Yep. And one of my favorite, talking about Warren Buffett, one of my favorite quotes from Warren Buffett is, if you can buy a dollar for 80 cents, that's a good thing. And if you can show your client that if they spend this money, they get more back, that's a good thing. Yeah. And that's where the mentality should be, rather than, in a sense, thinking of money as something punitive. It's like, well, I did 4 hours of work for you, so you should compensate me this much money. See, that's a very different mentality versus if you invest this much, what can I help you earn? What goals can I help you achieve through my work?
Yeah, and that can also flow both directions as well. Not saying people should discount their prices or whatever, especially not if someone just offers you exposure. But it does flow through to the other end of the spectrum, and I've had this conversation with people a lot before, but how much you're willing to, how much you want to do that job, and does it have other benefits for you as a photographer and for your career?
That's right.
Not having that get pushed on you from the client side, but you going from the other direction. What is this to me? Is this going to be an annoying job that is not something I want to do in the future, and I don't want to attract similar clients and things like that? Maybe there's a reason then to try and maximize your earning potential out of that job. And if you miss it, you miss it. And that's what the question I often ask people is like, will you be disappointed if you miss out on this? If you quote it higher than someone else does, and it's purely based on price, and they don't pick you, will you be like, damn it, I shouldn't have charged that much. I really wanted that job. Because if that's the feeling you're going to get, maybe you should be more aggressive with your pricing. Like, it depends on how much you want it, and whether it has other benefits to your future for your photography career. It's tricky, but that's the other side of the equation that I always think about. It's like, where does this fit into my overall plan, and how much do I want it? Yeah,
absolutely. And that's why so go on, Greg.
I was just going to say, I imagine, Jason, that that whole approach of what are your goals for the you asking the client, what are your goals? Let me help you meet those goals. Businesses will continually have goals. It's a core part of how they operate. And if you help them achieve this lot of goals, well, then there's no reason why you can't help them achieve the next 5 lots too. So for you as a commercial photographer, you're opening a doorway or a pathway for more work from that same client, or even more referrals.
Yeah, and I also want to be careful not to oversimplify things, because, like I said, it's not about earning top dollar. And like I said at the start, we all have to work out what success means for us. Because, I love what you said, Justin. Like, there's value beyond monetary value of a job as well. Like, like you might love the experience, you might love the connections that you get from it, or even just if you can make it, if it's a fun enough job that you don't mind doing lots of times, there's a lot of earning potential there. If you can do 10 of those a week versus only one, and then you're really enjoying it, that's also value there as well. So I think, firstly, like I said, that's why I try and encourage people to approach jobs with curiosity, because it stops being too formulaic. It stops it from being too one-sided, like you said. If you're looking at it, then you first to kind of go, what is my relationship with this job? Is this something I want to do more of or less of? Am I moving into this direction? Is this someone I want to work with? Some of my most fun jobs have been, on paper, my most boring jobs, just because the team has been so fun to work with. I rock up and I go, I get to hang out with these people all day. How fun. I really enjoyed it. And sometimes the coolest jobs with the coolest celebrities turn out to be the biggest pain, because I was like, I'm hating being here and I hate everyone here. And, you just, you have to determine success, what success or what something good is yourself on your own terms, and really sort of resist the urge to kind of just, look at me, I'm so cool, I got to do this. If you're happy shooting this thing, do it. If you don't feel comfortable with it and you hate it every time, no matter how much you're charging for it, stop doing it. Because I think that the main goal is longevity. Right over everything is longevity. Like, I want people to still love it in 10 years' time, rather than sort of have a real hard push and then not want to do it again.
Do you want to do a free pricing workshop for me?
Sure.
I want to, and I've done this for a few clients already, because I don't shoot, I run Lucky Straps as well, so I don't shoot full time. So I've got I can shoot for free, or I can charge as much as I want. And it financially isn't a massive issue to me, because it's not my sole income. But I want to do, I've really enjoyed commercial work that is probably the opposite to what you do, in the sense that it's probably more like what you do with adventure motorbike stuff and stuff like that. It's like less setup, very documentary style, like I was saying with this job that I did last week, and I've done that before for other clients as well. Everything's in my backpack. I move fast. I've been underground in mines, in shut down power stations, all that kind of stuff. Very rarely with lighting, unless it's a underground like mining situation or what, working to the environment in the elements, usually for a half day or a full day. And the clients are usually looking to they're not usually looking for like, hey, this is a campaign. We want to increase our sales in this demographic or whatever. It's usually more overall branding, document what they're doing. There might be some elements in trying to get bigger projects in the future, but it's not something where I can be like, hey, I'll help you land this project and that's going to add a lot of value to your business. It's more just like, we're doing a full website refresh or something like that, and we need imagery and updated things and stuff like that. How do let's say, for example, there's a national company that's been around for a long time. Let's call them Smurfy. And they, they're a big company, but they're also mindful of costings and things like that. How do you approach pricing something like that for a full day, when you don't have there isn't a specific outcome. It's not going on a billboard or something like that. It's like, hey, we just want fresh set of images for future website and branding, things like that. promotional flyers.
Is this a single job or is this an ongoing kind of like you do it a few weeks?
Single to start with. Just like, hey, we just want to come in for a day, get some images. And it's one of those things where it's like, personally, I would also prefer, if it goes well, that they want to work with me ongoing, and maybe I can cultivate an ongoing relationship with them, where I pop in every few months or something like that, but not a weekly thing.
So they're looking for a bank of images, like basically like as many as you can give us?
Yeah, basically, but not none of these clients want hundreds. You know, they might want 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great job.
It was. I literally did it last week. It was amazing. It was really fun, and I enjoyed it. And so I'd like to do more of it. And I actually want to try and figure out a way to try and advertise that to people, like regional Australian industry businesses.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And look, I guess I try and think about once again in terms of their goals, even if they don't know what their goals are. Maybe it's part of, if you can insert yourself as early as possible in the conversation, that's always a good thing. Like I'm talking like right pre-planning, who's designing the website, whatever it is. The earlier you can get in the conversation, the better, because you get more influence later on down the track. Because what's going to make you love or hate your job is ultimately the logistics of your work, which is like, is when I show up, are people going to be happy to see me there, or am I going to be just like in the way, things like that?
Well, that's the value that I've seen I've been able to provide. Like I say, I roll up with a backpack. I've got extra gear in the van, but I don't get it out unless it's required. I roll up with a backpack, and if they need to, put my high vis on, I've got safety gear on already. They don't need to handle me all day. And, often they'd be like, look, I've got a meeting. I will be back in 2 hours. Are you cool just to keep doing your thing? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. You don't, this doesn't have to be, we don't have to take employees off the floor to do this shoot. We don't have to interrupt everything for this shoot. This is just, I'll sort this out. And I need minimal input from you. I don't have to disrupt your day or your entire business's flow for the day. And I think that's a value that I can provide, but it's hard to communicate until people have, especially if they haven't worked with a photographer that's more, that's sort of like, all right, guys, I need 10 people to stand over there, and I'm going to set this lighting up and hold my light meter out and double check that and do it, and it slows everything down. And then they realize, oh, okay, that's actually quite disruptive to our business. So yeah, it's like trying to communicate that, and then also knowing how to price it, because from the outside looking in, it's like less of a production, so it's less valuable. It's like, oh, he didn't set up lights and bring a crew and all this stuff. So it's like, was it really that valuable? Or could anyone with a camera have just rocked around and taken these photos?
Well, yes and no, because I think this is a mistake a lot of us photographers make. We tend to think, oh, anyone can do this. But to the client, if they trust you, they don't trust someone else. Even if they could have the same skills, do they have the same empathy? Do they have the same insight into what you want? Do they even want to, on a basic level, how many times do they want to have this conversation? They may only want to have this conversation once.
Yeah.
So their time is valuable. Exactly. So you want to think about, and this is where a lot of photographers get it wrong. They try and make their business too official. And they go, oh, here's the contract, here's the thing, here's the that. And you're overwhelming the client. They just go, I just want some photos. And I think your approach is very good. Like sometimes it being easier is of a higher value to them than it being complex. So the value of us going, I need to set more lights, that makes my work more valuable. It's not the same value for the client.
No.
So you have to view it with deep empathy towards them. It's like, yes, I will make your day easier, and I will still be able to deliver the things that will benefit you. So I don't think that cost necessarily translates that if I only bring one camera, one lens, it's a less valuable job. Yeah. Like if you photograph celebrities with the same lens every day in natural light, is it any less valuable if it's a great shot? No, it's not. It's so I would ask yourself that, and then work out, what is the value of these? And if this is the hard thing. I often do have this, like clients who don't know why they want photos. They'll be like, I think we want some stuff. We need some content. We need some assets.
Really?
Because
Wow.
someone in our marketing team told us we need some shots.
Yeah, because I've had the other way around where usually they're like, we've known we've needed photos for 6 years. We just haven't gotten around to organizing it yet. All the clients that I've worked with are sort of the other way around. I don't think I've ever had someone be like, I don't know what these are for, but we just thought we'd book someone in. Yeah,
But I think they're actually the same size as the same coin. I think like if they knew it was important, they would have done it. But there's still that uncertainty about like, how do we go about doing it? I don't really know what outcome really should be, how to prioritize it. And really, if you want to work as a professional photographer, not you specifically, Justin, because I know you are a professional.
No,
but like talking to your audience broadly, like it's the work is that relationship. Because ultimately, if you want to be a photographer, photography should be the easy part of your job. It should be easy whether you have to set lights up or not. It should be. I don't hire a plumber hoping they can do the job. I expect them to be amazing at their jobs.
Yep.
So the work is really the relationship that you create with the client. It's to help them go, yes, the thing that you've been avoiding, actually, I can make that feel quite easy. I can make that feel quite possible. Actually, if you had this budget, I could even do this for you, and then we can actually make that even simpler, have minimal interruption, but still give you maximum sort of value in the content that you create. Now, in terms of monetary value, this is where I would think usage has a big factor in it. Like if it's going to go in a national campaign.
And
that's
this
where
is the thing that I
is.
don't understand. Can you explain that to me and by proxy the rest of the internet? Why does usage matter, and why should I as a photographer take that into consideration with pricing? Like, say if I'm going to shoot for a day and I know that the editing will take a day, it's 2 days of my time. I want to try and run a profitable business. Say I've taken those factors into it and come up with an idea of where the price sits. Let's say, for example, I'm going to shoot for a day and edit for a day, and I've decided that that's worth $2,000 of my of not but like that will allow me to run a profitable business with my overheads and my gear and everything that's involved in it. Why would the price change depending on how they're going to utilize the photos that I give them?
Well, firstly, I think your model is absolutely fine. Like, I think having a day rate is good. And my day rate, this is how I teach people to work it out. How much do you want to make a year? Let's say this easy number. Let's say $100,000 a year is something, I think most people should aim for. That how much does that mean a week? Let's say you give yourself a few weeks of holidays. So that means you should earn about $2,000 a week.
Yeah.
And from there, you can work out the value of every job. If this job, after meetings, shooting, editing, and you only have the energy to do one of these a week, it should be minimum $2,000. That's a really good baseline to have. I think it's a very responsible baseline to have. That means if I can do 3 of these jobs easily in my time and still have time for marketing, invoicing, feeding myself, spending time with people I love, then if I can do 3 of them, each of those jobs should be worth about $700-800. So that's a nice, easy base level way of thinking about charging. But in terms of thinking about usage, I think a lot of photographers leave a lot of money on the table because they're not understanding the value of a single image and what that does for the client. It also means if you're thinking about hours, that means you're actually assuming how much time a job will take versus their goals. Now, I'll give you I'll turn the scenario in a different way. I'll give you an example. Someone came to me with a job to say, we want these assets. I think it was about 15, 16 photos. And in my head, I was thinking, I could do that in a day. And that'll be about $2,000. But I shut up and I said, what are your goals and what's your budget? And so our goals are we want to reach a public audience. We really want to, because we got a lot of expensive equipment that we want the public to work with and things like that. and we have a budget of about $20,000. Now, how does that change your approach? So is it now a day shoot, or do you have more scope?
Yeah, I was
Because
going to say,
the deliverables are the same, 16 photos. If I got $20,000, I say, oh, when do you need it by? So, a couple of months. So what if I spend a month doing this to give them 16 photos?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the job totally changes.
Yeah, so you would now be looking at it as multiple shoots potentially with different themes or goals for each shoot or whatever, maybe different models or whatever's involved, because you're like, this is actually, maybe we've got scope for 4 one-day shoots with more pre-production and more people on hand during the day, and I mean higher cost models. I don't know what in your world like what that equates to, but is that how you
or even just paying for an idea? Like I actually put a creative fee on there because I had so many meetings because they didn't know, they knew what they wanted to spend, but they didn't know what they wanted to end up with. So I was like, let's sit and work it out. And how much is an idea worth? Like the person who designed the Virgin logo on a napkin, how much is that idea worth? Like it's, the time is not the point. The point is the value. The client has already decided that this campaign is worth possibly millions of dollars to them.
Yeah.
So a $20,000 budget is a reasonable amount of money to spend on something like that.
But you wouldn't just do the $2,000 shoot and charge them $20,000. Is what?
Well,
I mean, yeah. So how does that work? Talk to me.
It's value is always in the eye of the spender. If they feel that $2,000 shoot is worth $20,000, why not? Because there's people who make way more money. And it's not about being unethical. It's actually going, well, wow, maybe my work is actually worth a lot more. Maybe this one photo will really make a difference. And even if it only takes me a day to do it, if the value is there, then the value is there. And I'm not saying this is a typical day in anyone's photography world.
It's a
but
cool thought
it's a
experiment.
good mental exercise to kind of go, well, what is the value of an image? Because we, as photographers, tend to only think hours. This takes me a day, this takes me that, and that's how much it should be. And that's actually, the value is only the value to us. We're not even thinking about the value of the image to the client. So the client has a billboard that they want, and that billboard is going to go around the world. So let's talk about usage now. And that billboard is going to launch a new product that's going to once again make them millions of dollars. What is that single image worth? And even if it took you 5 minutes to shoot, does the value of it change to the client? Not really. If the outcome is still, I'm going to make millions of dollars on this, then why not?
So let's say the client, Smurfy, this company, doesn't know what they're going to do with their images. They just want a little bit of a bank of them. Would you then, do you have rates that where you're like, this is the fee for these images and they can be used in this way. However, if they're going to be used in these other ways, there are additional
That's exactly
fees.
what I do.
Is that
That's
how
exactly
it works?
what I do. That's exactly what I do.
And
I'll give you an example.
that? Like when you explain that to them, do they go, oh yeah?
If this business has a marketing department, they will understand it.
Okay.
If they're solid, I don't really talk about licensing to small businesses. They literally have no concept of it. They'd be like,
and so you wouldn't present that to them. You would just say, this is the rate, and you can do what you want with these images.
That's right, because the most they could earn is maybe nothing still. They're still taking that risk. But when you're working for a different level, and this is what I mean by starting to decide who your client is. If you're working for clients who are just starting from 0 to 1, sure, you're going to shoot for $200 and they want you to work like a $2,000 job. And, versus the client who knows what they want, who knows what value it is. But then by then that client is paying for minimizing risk.
Yeah. So
if you're a known quantity and if you can exercise empathy towards them, you have just raised the value of your business. You kind of like, I understand what you're trying to go for. And sometimes I've actually had to educate clients. So in saying that, I've had to go, this is why you're paying licensing, because you stand to make this. And I explain licensing as protection for them, so that if that image becomes viral, it becomes a massive sensation, I can't come back and then ask for licensing money if they've already paid it. Does that make sense? Like it says, licensing protects the client from having to spend more money if that image becomes more valuable. If the person who sold the rights of an image can't ask for more after that if that's within the contract. They say, you know, for the first 3 years, for $500 you get usage for this amount of work, and if that thing absolutely blows up, you can't come back and go, well, actually you should pay me more, because they've protected themselves by paying the licensing fee.
So okay, so if they didn't pay the licensing fee, say it's a small business, do your images then, do they have a limited amount of time they can use them, or?
And that's a real gray area, and I would rather leave that for a copyright lawyer. But
okay,
I for at that particular level, I just let it go. If it gets, you know, like but in both ways, you're still caring about the client. You still kind of go, okay, you can't afford this, so have it. If it makes you lots of money, that's great. Come back to me for the next job.
Yes.
But if you're shooting for a Fortune 500 company, then absolutely they should understand the value of your work and value of licensing and the value of protection as well. They would be all lawyered up. They already understand these things.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example as well in terms of accidental earnings. I did a job. It was for a commercial. It was they were filming a commercial, and they said, "Oh, we'd just like you to come in and take some shots. We don't know whether we'll even use these shots." So I said, "Oh, look, my minimum fee is this much. Like, if that's fine, I'll show up. I'll shoot whatever." And I probably shot for about 15 minutes. Honestly, 15 minutes. It was literally almost observational stuff. But there was one image that went, "This is perfect for our billboard." But before that, I actually said to them, "I will shoot it, but any usage of it, they will have to pay. They can use for web, social, but if they're going to use it for public displays, there will be a licensing fee attached to it." And I made way more from that licensing fee than I did from the actual shoot.
Okay. And do your licensing fees change depending on the client, or is it more depending on the scope of the potential for that image, or is that the same thing, I guess?
It's kind of the same thing, and it is not easy. It is not easy to work it out. But I mean, like generally a billboard, you know, licensing fee may be between $1,000 to $3,000 for a photographer.
For
and that
a
may
12-month
be 12
period
months.
or something
for
like
a 12-month
that?
period, things like that. But like I said, it's a lot of these things, a lot of photographers don't have to deal with, because a lot of big companies go to agencies, creative agencies, to get these billboards done. And actually the licensing goes to the agency. So this is where kind of like you're sort of playing in that in-between area, but
so then
it's
the
still
agency finds someone like me who just does the shoot and is just like, yeah, enjoy that. And then they hit the client with like, oh, by the way, there's all these licensing fees that you have to pay. And they
That's right.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the client doesn't care as long as they're paying what they're getting the value. If you can start doing it yourself, then why not? And I think that also shows respect to the client as well. It gives you an understanding that I want to create something of value for you. If it's not value, then you shouldn't pay this much for it. So going back to Smurf, or whatever that company is, Smurfy. Like I think your day rate is just fine. And like I said, putting in a little caveat, like if this gets used for X, Y, Z, there will be a licensing fee attached to it. And I think that's a very fair deal for everyone.
Yeah. So it basically just says, hey, if you plan on putting this on, buses or billboards or whatever, this is the fee. Now, as a business owner as well, I want to give people just some of my experience when it comes to, because despite the grand nature of Lucky Straps, we are quite small. There's a couple of us. We're not a big business. Most of our straps get shipped out of Jim's garage, which is quite amazing. We'll do some more content around that soon, won't we, Greg? We'll do like a big deep dive on how it all works. But I've had photographers, we get photographers reach out to us all the time, content creators, saying, hey, love your straps. I'd love to create some content for you, blah, blah, blah. And every now and then, if I like what they do, I'm like, okay, like what do you have in mind? And they usually come back to me and say, what's your budget? And I usually say, no. Like, we do most of our own content creation. We're photographers ourselves, but I do love your work. Do you have some rates or whatever? Because our budget is essentially nothing unless I can strip it out of somewhere else and pay you because I really like what you do. And then they usually have some fees, and I want to work with photographers and pay them, but we have sort of, like I say, shoestring sort of budgets. And a couple of photographers have sent through stuff, and I'm like, yeah, great, let's do it. I'll send you some straps, let's go, because they just send through quite a realistic price, and it's just a price, and I'm like, that sounds awesome. But I've had a few send me through ones that are like, you can use these for 6 months, and then every, at 6 months, it's another $1,200, and it can be used for this social media and that, but you can't use it on your website. If you want to use it on your website, you can have a 12-month fee for stuff like that. And I immediately just shut down, because I'm like,
Yep.
not interested at all. Like, we're way too small.
hard.
We're not, and they were sort of looking for licensing on stuff that, like, we're not doing. If they'd sent through a billboard one, I would have been like, fair enough, we're not doing billboards, doesn't matter. Sure.
Yeah.
Like, if we do put it on a billboard, I'll pay you the money.
Right.
That's cool.
Right.
But they wanted licensing ongoing for social media use. And I think that is a thing with creators, maybe with big brands, and like where they're posting them too, and collaborations and all that sort of stuff. But is that something you ever see in the commercial world, like wanting to, like, annual licensing for social media?
With me,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Have
you ever heard of that being a thing with, like, sort of just normal?
not for
commercial
social media,
photography?
no. This is what I mean by, like, they've lost empathy to the clients or to the person they're shooting.
That's
for.
what it felt like. It felt like they were like, here's a way for me to make ongoing revenue from you. And I was like, I don't know about this. This feels.
And this is what I mean
weird.
by like, for most of what I've just shared, largely it's a thought exercise, but it does come into reality for every now and then when you shoot for those big clients who have, the budget to make it. And that's actually doesn't apply for most companies. And if, like I said, $1,200 is, it could be your profits for a month. Who knows? Like, it's
small business.
You're just not going to do that. So therefore, it'd be like, well, you have to find out value, make value some other way for yourself. If you're going to shoot for someone, whether it's like, you give them a shout out along with, a fair rate or whatever, or gear, that's on them to decide that value for themselves. If it's not, then you just politely just go, I don't think we're in alignment of what the value of this work is.
Yeah, which is how the conversations sort of end up. I'm like, say, sorry, I don't think our sort of budgets align with what you're worth. I'm sorry, because it's totally fine for them to charge whatever they need to charge. Like, I would never sort of say, hey, you're not worth that money, because they might be. They probably just work with bigger brands than us.
That's right.
But a lot of it was also just the complexity around the billing arrangements. If there's that unknown of, like, it's too much for a small business.
It's a pain.
To handle.
It feels like homework.
Yeah, so that would be my caution. And obviously, you've said it's like, this is for sort of larger businesses. Is maybe be careful about bombarding a smaller business with too many different fee options and things like
exactly
that.
Right.
Because
that's why I said your approach was just fine. This is my day rate, and if you're going to absolutely use it for something that is like a national campaign, that's where it changes. Other than that, enjoy. You want the client to love working with you, because they want to go, this person's really on my side.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and payment should not feel punitive. Like, if they pay you, it'd be like, I'm giving you money to do something for myself.
Yeah,
and that's where the value is. It should not be, well, I've done work, so I'm going to take what's mine. It's a very different mentality. I remember shopping for a luxury item. I went into Cartier, and I was shopping for a wedding band, and I was looking at some watches. I love my watches, and I looked at the price. I went, "Whew, that's a lot." And this must be a trained line from them. And all he said was, "Just put it on your list. When you're ready, come back." It's fine. It doesn't matter. Like, there's no insult in you finding that expensive. But if one day you feel that that is of value to you, come back. And that's the thing. I sort of approach and kind of go, this is my value. If you're not my client, that's totally fine. It's
Yeah.
like when you're at this stage, come back. And I've had clients who, when I first quoted them, they're like, "Oh, I'm not at that stage yet," and then 2 years later, they're like, "I'm ready now, and let's do this." And they have felt that value because I'm like, okay, now I really want to say, because I really want to honor them because they're using their hard-earned money on me. Like they did come back, and I want to make sure that helps them push what they want forwards. And I think that's, you treat it as that kind of healthy relationship, then you also have a healthy relationship with the way you quote, the way you talk to people, the way you manage your own finances and things like that. And yeah, look, there are days where I still do something for next to nothing because I kind of go, this is a fun job. So I don't want everyone to think that once you make it here, you only charge this. You know what? The big jobs only come every now and then.
Yeah.
But you should be ready for them. If you want to talk to a big company every now and then, you'd be like, all right, I can have this conversation. But if you're not even anywhere remotely close to thinking that way, then you're only going to think of invoicing as a punitive thing, and you'll in a sense find no joy out of it.
And you can also scare larger companies off with the wrong fee structure and the smaller fees as
100%.
well, because they'll be like, oh, this isn't us,
this is small fry.
Well, I mean, if you go into a, maybe not Cartier, but like if you just went into a general store that sells watches and the guy shows you one and you say, oh, I like that, how much is that? And he's like, oh, $64. You'll probably be like, yeah, it's probably not what I was looking for. Like it can be it can scare people the other direction. They think, oh, this person is not at the level we're looking for. They're not the safe choice. They're not the trustworthy choice. Yeah, there is. That.
And like I said, I also encourage my client to kind of go, if you want it bigger, it's fine. As long as you can afford it, we can do whatever you can dream of. As long as the budget's there, we can hire a van to go and do this. We can do an overnight thing. We can get the celebrity in, whatever you want. As long as you're ready for it, we can do it. So I want to be able to be prepared to have that conversation, or even be able to talk at that level. If you never think that way, you will never know how to have that conversation. So even as a mental exercise, it's worth going, well, yeah, if I could do this job for $2,000, what would it look like? If I could do it for $20,000, what would it look like? Because there will come the client that goes, this is worth $20,000 to me, and this is how I want to feel at the end of it. And if that comes once every few years, that's still great. But if you don't think of it that way, that will never come. Exactly, you'll price yourself out of the bigger clients because you're too busy thinking bottom dollar. Oh yeah, I can get this done real quick, and it'll be this much, and I'm going to give you this product. And you go, what if they wanted this product?
Exactly.
And you want to know how to deliver it.
Yeah, and like you say, get in early with them and work towards their goals. It'll help you better understand the potential for the pricing. And then there is always the opportunity to say, you present them with a price. And often in my quotes, I'll say something along the lines of, if you would like any modifications or amendments to this quote, please give me a call or whatever. And it's kind of like a soft opening of like, hey, if this hits a bit out of the range, like talk to me and we'll, I'm not just going to discount it, but we can, like maybe we can make this shoot a little bit smaller than what I was thinking or whatever. And that you can always help them out afterwards. Whereas if you sort of underquote it and then they're like, yep, great. You don't know potentially what you might have been able to charge and what the value was to them. It's a tricky ongoing learning process, but
it honestly, in a weird way, it doesn't get easier. It's always a new conversation. I've been doing it for a long time, and there's still days I want everyone to know there are days I still get nervous quoting a job because I'm not quite sure where we're at. I'm not quite sure what their situation is, and I send this out in my way. And the thing is, you got to let them go sometimes. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I've tried this. and you got to like tweak it, and you'll work out where you're at, but you also should work out where you want to be. So you got to understand the market, all those little things,
And
you
if you
got to be
stuff
a
it up,
bit
you'll
gentle
learn.
on yourself.
You'll learn.
What's that, Greg?
If you stuff it up, you'll learn.
That's right. You'll learn. Absolutely.
I like that thought though, that it doesn't get easier. It's like that doesn't get easier. The numbers just get bigger, and that's something that my partner's a fitness coach, a CrossFit coach, and I go to the gym every day. But we tell people that start that are new that are like, oh man, this is really, it's like it's hard work exercising, and we're like, yeah, it doesn't. It's also hard for it's hard for all of us every day. You know, it's not like you do it for a while and then you're like, oh, this is easy. It's just easy every day. Every day's hard. There's just sometimes the numbers get bigger. You lift a few more weights or whatever, but it's still hard. Every day sucks.
Definitely. And I think a lot of photographers feel guilty about finding it hard. And that's why I feel it's so important to say that, is because there are days after I hit send and go, I don't know if I did the right thing.
Yeah,
and
that's cool to hear that it's even someone at your level is that, because I usually, I mean, most emails, so the way I reconcile myself with that thought is asking myself that question, that if they decline this, will I be upset?
I love that advice.
You know, like because maybe if they would, I used to tell my sister, do you remember eBay? I used to tell my sister when she bid stuff on eBay. And I always used to mess with her head, because I was like, she'd be like, that's it, I'm bidding $80 and I'm not bidding any more than that. And I'd say, will you be upset if it sells for $81? And she's like, yeah, probably. I'm like, well, then you bid 85. Like, yeah, you have to. And then I think that's something, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't just maybe go as low to make sure you get the job or whatever. But it's a good question to ask just before you send the emails. Like, would I be upset if they turn around and say, no, that's too expensive for us? And if you'd be upset, have a rethink through all your pricing and double check it, even just a second look, you know? Yeah.
And the opposite is that's true. That there's stuff I kind of go, it's this much, and they say no. I'm like, phew, that's good. Now I know where we're at, because you know, it's often it's the low paying clients that will work you the hardest.
This is very true. I found that
I've been hearing, I'll pay you for 2 hours and you finish half an hour early. Can you do this? Whereas the ones who, if you quoting on value, they'd be like, great, we got our job done early. We can all go home a bit earlier because we still got the same value done. There's two slightly different mentalities, but so it is that tweaking and working out where you are and where you want to be. And I don't want anyone to feel guilty about it. It's just trying, tweaking, applying, thinking about your language. But overall, if you approach it with, I want to help people. Yeah. And if their bigger budgets help me help them, that's also a good thing. But if they don't, how else can I get it? And it's that little back and forth. And end of the day, you should enjoy what you do and feel the value in it.
Yeah. I love it. That's awesome.
Very good advice.
Yeah, great advice. If people wanted to professionally get their advice from you on like a semester by semester basis, how do they do that? Like what? Where is it that you're teaching?
I teach at Collarts in Collingwood.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a bachelor degree, and I teach the commercial photography units within that.
So cool.
It's a good course, and then our students seem to be enjoying themselves.
I bet. Yeah, it sounds like they've got great teacher. It's very cool, very interesting conversation.
Now,
I love talking about this because I want people to keep doing what they love doing.
Yeah, I think it's important.
Yeah, definitely.
Most definitely. Just before we wrap up, just a couple of comments I want to share. One's from Nev, who's gone off to his day job. Thank you for the show, Jason and guys. Really always enjoy it. Sorry for too many questions and comments, and have a great day. Had to do my day job. Hope your day goes well, Nev. Thanks for joining us once again, and we look forward to having you on again in the future. What else we got here? From Jason. Did we work out? It was Jason, wasn't it?
I'm pretty sure. He'll tell us.
Yeah, Jashani. This is fantastic listening, extremely expansive and informative. And in fact, earlier when we were talking about your bike, Jason Lau.
Oh, yeah. Yes. He said he can accept the Bonnie.
Yeah.
And his is a Triumph? Yeah.
Triumph.
It is a
although,
Triumph Sprint. something
Not
like
that
that.
that one is currently running. Head gasket, cracked head, needs a rebuild.
Dang.
What else you got here?
Does that mean he can't accept the Harley?
That's right. It's a very
yeah.
divisive bike.
Yeah, right.
Just referring to our most recent conversation, that's the exact outlook that the guys at the Melbourne Leica store adopted to me. Try the camera, use it a bit. Yes, it's expensive, but when it's right for you, come back and see us. And then to finish off, I haven't returned yet, but when I do, it'll be because I'm good to buy.
My first experience at the Leica store was like that, and that's what got me hooked to buy the Q3. But unfortunately, since then, I've been in once or twice, and the experiences haven't been as nice. And it was a different staff member. I don't know if they have that staff member anymore, but I was like, whoever the guy was what I would expect walking into like a Rolex store or something like that. He was charismatic, friendly, completely like, hey, dude, most people can't afford these cameras. Don't worry about it. Like, let's have a look at something. Like, don't stress.
Yeah.
Let's just check them out. But don't, like, this is kind of a, we don't expect everyone to walk in here and buy cameras. Let's pull some out of the case and check them out. And it was a very fun and what would you say, like disarming experience when you kind of expect them to be like, hey, can we check your credit card before you touch any cameras or something like that? It was the opposite. It was like, man, most people don't buy these cameras. Like, let's check them out.
Speaking of Leicas, let's end on a little bit of news.
Oh, yeah.
Before we wrap up. So Leica goes for a retro touch with its new M11D rangefinder. Have you guys seen this?
I have. Yeah.
Yes. Very interesting move.
They've been doing this for a while.
The
No
M11s.
LCD. The no LCD thing.
Yeah,
on the
so with this one,
yeah,
I didn't realize they had this range, but this model, as you can see, doesn't have an LCD screen. It's going for more of a traditional, the experience of the photography, trusting in knowing the camera, knowing the settings, working with your exposure triangle. And so they've gotten rid of the LCD and put an old school ISO dial on it. And it kind of being a Fuji guy, it reminded me of the X Pro 3 when it had an LCD, but it folded up. So, and where on this Leica, where the dial is, the X Pro 3 had a little unlit LCD that showed the film simulation or the camera settings. And I think I like it. I can't afford it, but I like it because it goes back to that whole stop checking every photo. I mean, obviously the stuff I do, it's different. Commercial is a very different story, but for street photography and for photojournalism and documentary kind of style, just trusting your gut and going with the flow of what the light is doing and what's happening around you and capturing based off your knowledge of how to correctly expose a shot. I think it's really wonderful. Not for that price. I don't know if they've actually listed a price just yet.
But really, Greg, when you think about it, what's the value of an image? That price really is probably a bargain compared to some of the memories and the images that you could create with that.
Yeah, I see what you're doing.
I mean, we just talked about pricing.
Love it.
I did a workshop with James Day, a wedding photographer was a Fuji shooter. I think he's now a Sony shooter. Back in the day, and I think this has been done before. I think he might have copied it from someone else. But we all taped up our LCDs for like an hour shoot, so you can get this experience for less money if you want to with your own camera. I mean, it's hard with mirrorless now because it's it's essentially just a mini LCD in the EVF. Yeah. But this was with DSLRs, and it was actually he was shooting Fuji. Damn, he was cheating. I didn't even think about that. We were shooting DSLRs, and we taped up the LCD, and it's a fun experience. It takes a few shots to realize, hey, they're not coming up on the back screen anymore, and then you just kind of ease yourself into it, and it's nice.
In other camera systems, you can actually just turn off the LCD. but Canon obviously hasn't gotten to that point.
I was shooting Nikon at the time.
Well,
But I
there
don't
you
know
go.
why. I don't know why. Maybe I think he wanted us to not be able to cheat and press the play button or whatever. Because
Yeah.
you turn the LCD up. Good, like, so DSLRs, the LCD was always off. Yeah. Until the image review come up, and then you just turn the image review off,
In the
but you
early
can still
ones,
press
yeah.
play. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Anyway, sorry.
Yep.
Go on. Moving
No,
on.
no, that's okay. But that does bring us I'll start again. That brings us to the end of today's The Camera Life podcast. I want to extend a warm thank you and appreciation to Jason for sharing so much insight into the world of commercial photography, your journey, your inspirations, your story. You've inspired us very much so, and I'm sure that the people that have watched or are watching and will watch this in the days and weeks to come will feel the same. It's really opened my eyes to a very different way to look at how we value our work. And then obviously if we take that next step to want to make money out of photography, how we actually go about doing that. So thank you for your time today and your amazing, sharing your knowledge. It's been great. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated being here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Oh,
And also,
no
2
worries.
hours, 2 hours and 25 minutes. Holy moly.
Yeah. No, I was very, very keen to get you on when I started looking at the guest list. And Justin has been getting cranky because all I've had on so far are bearded Fujifilm shooters.
So out of place.
Oh, so out of place.
Out of place.
But look, for those of you
I'll work
watching
on the
along at
beard.
home. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm trying.
no.
I'm trying.
Are you? Are you?
Yeah, I'm trying to squeeze it out, but nothing comes out.
I just had mine trimmed.
Oh, God.
A lot of it off.
Did you save some of the trimmings for me?
No, I've
them on.
donated to a hospital. Anyway, the Camera Life podcast brought to you by Lucky Camera Straps. Justin, what's happening in the week ahead for you or for Lucky? Anything big and bold?
Trying to get these clothes photographed, and no, nothing super exciting. I've been shooting some more mountain biking with the Canon RF50 1.2 lens. I'm going to do a little bit more of that because I read some things on the internet, and there was a guy saying that it's very slow to focus compared to Sigma and Sony 50mm lenses, and I was like, that's wrong. So I've been testing it, and he's wrong. I've been shooting a fair bit of sports with the RF50 1.2 at 1.2, and it tracks very well, very well. So I've been enjoying that a lot.
So maybe
Shooting
user
primes
error.
I'd say possibly user error, or maybe just justifying a gear purchase because he chose the Sigma over the Canon RF because of the autofocus speed, and I was like, doesn't add up, buddy. Anyway, so I might make a video about that soon because it's been super fun shooting mountain bikers blasting past, but at 1.2, and then getting home, and it's like it's like shooting film. You get home, you're like, oh, how many of these are going to be in focus?
Yeah.
and then they are, which is pretty sweet.
That's nice. That's
So,
nice.
yeah,
Well,
that's
if you're
me.
looking for a fashion photographer for your little Lucky Straps merch, I can hook you up with someone.
Oh, I can't afford it. I don't know. Oh, you? I thought you meant Jason in the studio.
No, I
was like,
did,
man.
but I was just showing off the merch again.
Oh, okay.
I was doing some marketing. I'm going to talk
Just
to
put it
you
on the
later.
list.
I'm going to talk to you later about my value,
I'll-
Justin.
I'll come back when I can afford it.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Jason, what's on for you in the week ahead?
What's on for my week? Oh, I'm teaching tomorrow, so my first class for this trimester. So I'm looking forward to that.
Nice, very cool.
Very cool.
What have I got on? I've been getting out a bit more with my camera, which is nice.
Excellent.
The light's been better. I've been out on walks, which has been good. And I don't
I
have
read
any
your
huge plans.
blog from the weekend. That was really cool.
Which one was that?
When you got out and strolled around on, I think Saturday or Sunday, I think.
Oh yeah,
in Melbourne.
yeah. Went to the city and
went to the
stumbled
city.
stumbled across a protest.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed the blog particularly. Yeah,
Thanks,
I loved that. I might I'll throw it in the description if anyone wants to have a read. It was a great blog.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. But that's about it. We next week we're returning back to Fujifilm. Will be the
Got 1 week.
Fuji Camera Life podcast once again. Russell Lord is joining us.
Oh yeah.
And Russell is a Fuji ambassador and shoots
And
mostly
legend.
a legend, yeah. And he does remember you, Justin. He says he had a few beers with you at some stage
We sure
years
did.
ago. But look, we'll hear from Russell next week. Once again, thank you, Jason. Where can people find your work? Where can people get in touch with you about gigs?
My website's probably the best, jasonlauphotography.com. And I'm on
Links in the
Instagram.
description.
Yeah.
Yep. Links for both of those are in the description.
Wonderful.
What's it? Instagram for motorbike content.
And
Worth a
and my fashion Instagram, Jason Lau Photos.
I'll add that one on there. I didn't have that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll add that one in there as
That's
well.
my bad.
And
Thanks, guys.
yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, look, we're going to sign off, guys. For those of you watching along, wherever you might be, as Jason said, get your camera. Doesn't matter what it is, just be present, because those moments will come and go, and you might as well be there with a camera in hand to capture them, because they'll never happen again. But on that note, signing off from the Camera Life podcast. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Slow